Roland Livingston sat at his mahogany desk in his home office, reading designs for his most recent architectural project. His fingers sketched the crisp lines of his next masterwork, a modern museum that would display both art and his creative design philosophy. A notice pinging from his laptop broke his focus. "You have a new message from Ingrid," the screen displayed. Roland clicked it open, expecting his daughter's normal quick update on her after-school activities. Instead, his gaze locked on 4 simple words that would rock his universe. "Dad, check your laptop." He discovered a folder on his desktop called Important. There were dozens of screenshots, messages, and emails. His daughter had captured all of them on Brenda's phone. Intimate chat between his wife and Scott Costa, a real estate entrepreneur who had frequently attended their social parties. "I love you, Scott. Roland doesn't understand me the way you do." One message was read. "Abandon him. I will give you everything you've ever wanted." Scott had responded. Roland's jaw tightened, his fingers grasping the edge of his desk until his knuckles were white. 15 years of marriage were reduced to betrayal in black and white on his screen. The texts dated back several months, each as a planned deception. A quiet knock on his office door interrupted his thoughts. "Dad?" Ingrid's voice scarcely rose above a whisper. "Come in, honey." Roland attempted to keep his voice steady despite the fury roaring inside him. Ingrid entered with her dark hair pulled back into a tidy ponytail. Her eyes looked so much like his. "I keep a close eye on him." At 15, she conducted herself with maturity that belied her age. "How long have you known?" Roland asked calmly. 3 months, Ingrid said, standing near his chair. "I spotted Mom acting strangely with her phone. She'd jump every time you approached close while she was texting. So I installed some monitoring software on her gadgets." Roland turned to face his daughter completely. "You should not have had to do it. Someone had to keep an eye on your back," Ingrid replied strongly. "There is more. Dad, I discovered something in Mom's email about my trust fund." Roland's expression clouded. "How about it?" Ingrid opened another file on his laptop. Bank statements arrived, revealing systematic withdrawals from the trust fund he had set for her future. Brenda had been siphoning thousands of dollars at a time. "She's been withdrawing money for months," Ingrid explained. "Designer bags and jewelry. We can go trips with him." Roland stood up slowly. His 6'2" physique was tense with suppressed wrath. His thoughts drifted back to their wedding day 15 years ago. Brenda had been brilliant in white, suggesting eternal life. He assumed she had received everything she had ever desired. "Dad!" Ingrid's voice brought him back to the present. "What are you planning to do?" Roland placed his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Nothing yet. We wait. Wait. But trust me, love. Your mother thinks she is brilliant. Let's see how clever she truly is." Roland went about his evening as normal. He made dinner, arranged the table for 3, and waited. Brenda walked in at 7, luxury shopping bags in hand. Her blonde hair is neatly groomed. "I apologize for being late," she announced, not apologizing at all. The interior design consultation for the Costa project was lengthy. Roland observed her, noticing how easily the lines flowed from her lips. "How are you, Scott?" he asked nonchalantly. Brenda replied automatically and then froze. Her blue eyes darted to his face, looking for any indication of what he knew. Roland remarked, "Dinner is ready," and turned away effortlessly. "Ingrid, please come down." Roland paid close attention to his wife during supper. She has changed throughout the years, become harder and more entitled. The woman who had previously smiled at his jokes and supported his goals now saw him only as a means to an end. Later that night, as Brenda slept sweetly alongside him, Roland lay awake with his thoughts working. She believed she had everything sorted out. "Take the money," consider their daughter's future, take off beside Scott Costa. But Roland Livingston had not established a name in architecture by being predictable or weak. The confrontation began the next morning. Brenda stood in their bedroom, placing expensive things into a new suitcase that he had purchased her. "I want a divorce," she declared, her chin raised defiantly. "Scott and I have been planning this for several months." Roland finished with an ice-cold voice. "Did you think I wouldn't learn about the trust fund?" "Brenda," her composure slipped for a brief period. "You cannot prove anything." Roland laughed, and the sound was empty of humor. "I do not need to prove it. You have done all of the work for me." "What is that intended to mean?" "You will find out soon enough." Roland turned to go and halted. "Oh, and Brenda, remember when you said I was too preoccupied with work to notice you? You were correct. I was intent on creating something long-lasting. You were intent on destroying it." Brenda's face reddened with rage. "You think you're perfect." "Roland, Scott is twice the man you'll ever become. He knows how much I'm worth. He now knows how much my money is worth." "There is a distinction." Roland's dark gaze focused on her. "Pack your belongings and get out. But remember this time, Brenda. Remember when you believed you won?" He left her standing there with her neatly manicured hands shaking while she zipped her luggage downstairs. Ingrid sat at the kitchen counter, her laptop open before her. "She's leaving," Roland said. Ingrid nodded, her fingers speeding across the keyboard. "Don't worry, Dad. I took care of everything." "What have you done?" Ingrid's lips curved into a faint, contented smile. "Simply wait for it." They did not have to wait long. 2 days later, Roland's phone echoed with Brenda's anger scream. "What have you done?" she screamed. "All of my accounts have been blocked, my social media, everything has gone public. How dare you?" Roland put the phone on speaker so that Ingrid could hear. "Brenda, I haven't done anything, but it appears our daughter has inherited more than just my eyes. Fix it. Fix that now, or I swear you are what?" Roland's voice became threatening. "Take more from her trust fund. Run towards Scott. Go ahead. But remember, you taught her that loyalty is meaningless. Don't be shocked that she absorbed the information so quickly." He stopped the phone call and stared at his daughter. Ingrid sat straight-backed, unapologetic. "I've posted everything. Dad, the texts, the images, everything. I tagged all of her pals, her social circle, Scott's business partners. Everyone knows what they did." Roland should have felt something. Regret, possibly, or anxiety about the consequences. Instead, he had only frigid satisfaction. "Well done." Scott's wife has already commented. Ingrid contributed. "Apparently, we weren't the only ones he was lying to." Roland nodded slowly. "Continue to observe their reactions. I want to learn everything." The fallout intensified throughout the day. Scott's business partners began to distance themselves openly. Brenda's carefully controlled social media presence shattered as friends and acquaintances turned on her. Their phones were continuously buzzing with messages, some encouraging, some demanding explanations. Roland's best friend and lawyer, Michael Dugan, arrived that evening with a bottle of scotch and a serious face. "I witnessed what happened." He spoke as Roland let him in. "Tell me you have a plan." Roland took him into the study where they could talk discreetly. "I've got numerous." Michael poured them each a drink. "Roland, I have known you for 20 years. I recognize that look. Whatever you are thinking, they attempted to take everything from me. Roland, you harmed my marriage, my daughter's future, and my reputation. They assumed I'd just take it. Roll over like a responsible husband and parent. Taking the high road is for those who have never been betrayed." Roland's eyes sparkled with danger. "Michael, you either agree or disagree with me on this, but please don't try to persuade me out of it." Michael took a long look at his pal before nodding. "What do you need?" "Information." Everything you can discover about Scott Costa's business dealings, each permission, contract partner, and Brenda. I want to know where all of that money went. It won't be inexpensive. Money is not an issue, is. They were stopped by Ingrid, who entered with her laptop. Dad, you should see this. Scott is threatening to sue me for defamation. He swears he will annihilate us. Roland seized the laptop and read Scott's message with increasing rage. The man's arrogance was evident in every remark, threatening not only legal action, but also personal retaliation. He will not touch you. Roland promised his daughter, Michael. How quickly can we send her trust funds to a safe location? Give me 24 hours, Michael responded. But Roland, if you are plotting what I believe you are, I intend to teach them both a lesson about consequences. Roland spoke quietly but with conviction. They believed they could play games with my life and family. They'll find out what happens when you betray Roland Livingston. That night, when Ingrid went to bed, Michael left with a list of responsibilities. Roland sat alone in his study. On his desk lay a stack of architectural prizes he'd received over the years, each one demonstrating his ability to see the broad picture, plan, and execute. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he had saved for emergencies. Alan. It's Roland Livingston. I am in need of your services. Discreetly. He paused and listened. Yes. This is about Scott Costa and my wife. Former wife. Another pause. No, Alan. I don't only want to win. I want to annihilate both of them. He hung up. Roland permitted himself a slight smile. Brenda and Scott believed they had scripted the ending to this narrative. They were about to learn. They had only written the beginning. Ingrid sat cross-legged on her bed, several screens open in front of her. She'd always been quiet and observant, learning from both her parents' strengths and shortcomings, particularly her father. She learnt patience and precision from her mother. She discovered that trust, once shattered, could never be fully rebuilt. Her fingers moved across the computer, establishing new monitoring techniques and creating alerts for any mention of their names online. She once protected her father. She would continue to defend him regardless of what happened next. Something was about to happen. She could sense it in the way her father moved through the house and now in the steel beneath his quiet words. Roland Livingston was plotting something, and Ingrid knew it would change everything. Brenda sat in Scott's fancy condominium on the opposite side of town. Her mascara was smeared with angry tears. "He did this!" she yelled, grabbing her phone. "Roland did this to embarrass us." Scott paced the room, his phone continually vibrating with messages from business partners and unhappy employees. "No, your brat of a daughter did this, and you're going to correct it. Hell, she shut me out of everything. I don't care how." Scott gripped her shoulders firmly. "Do you have an idea how much this could cost me?" "My reputation. My contracts." Brenda abruptly pulled away, seeing Scott clearly for the first time. Gone was the charming man who had promised her the world. In his place stood someone stronger, colder. "We will make them pay." She promised herself more than to him. Roland believes he is extremely bright and in charge. We'll show him what true suffering is like. Neither of them recognized they were playing right into Roland's hands, with their fury and desperation propelling them exactly where he wanted them to go. And Roland, in his study, was already arranging his pieces, preparing for a game of vengeance that would leave no survivors. "Don't worry, Dad. I took care of everything." The morning after Ingrid's cyber attack created a tense environment in the Livingston home. When Brenda stormed in, Roland was standing in the kitchen, brewing coffee with the same precision he used in everything else in life. "We need to talk," she demanded, her fancy clothing slightly wrinkled, her normally flawless beauty exposing cracks. Roland did not turn around. "What is this about?" "The affair. You stole the money from our daughter. Or perhaps you thought you'd never be caught." "Do not act superior to me, Roland." Brenda's voice was full with scorn. You were always so preoccupied with your work, so concerned with your precious reputation. What were you expecting? Roland turned his dark eyes on her with such intensity that she took a step back. What was I expecting? Loyalty, perhaps basic decency. However, those principles may be too difficult for someone who judges worth by designer labels. Brenda said, "I want a quick divorce," trying to regain her composure. Scott's lawyer, Scott's attorneys. Roland laughed sharply. The same Scott Casta who is currently seeing his business connections disintegrate as a result of his disclosed romance. Scott Brenda's face reddened. You have no proof for anything. You are aware that everything is based on circumstantial evidence? Is it? Roland pulled out his phone and displayed screenshots of bank transfers like these. Transfers from Ingrid's trust money into your personal account. The one you assumed I was unaware of for the first time. Brenda's expression showed a hint of uncertainty. How did you do that? Brenda, you're not as brilliant as you think you are. Neither is Scott. Roland's speech remained calm and almost conversational. Do you know what your biggest mistake was? Not the affair, not even stealing from our daughter. It underestimated me. Is this supposed to scare me? Brenda raised her chin defiantly. You are nothing without me, Roland. I helped you become socially acceptable. I gave you the connections you required. Roland moved closer, his presence filling the kitchen. No, Brenda, I constructed everything we owned. Just spin it, Dad. Ingrid's voice sounded from the doorway. She stood there in her school uniform, observing the situation with calculated curiosity. Brenda turned to face her daughter, her countenance softening artificially. Ingrid, sweetheart, you must understand. I understand completely, ma'am. Ingrid cut her voice coldly. I understand how you used Dad's credit cards to rent hotel rooms for Scott. I understand how you used money from my education fund to purchase luxury backpacks. I understand everything, Brenda, and you started forward. But Roland's hand reached out and grabbed her wrist. Don't, he warned with a low, dangerous voice. Do not even think about it. Brenda jerked away and rubbed her wrist. Fine. Keep your tiny spy. You deserve each other. She stormed upstairs. I returned minutes later with the luggage. I'll have my lawyers contact yours, she said from the doorway. Don't believe this is over, Roland. After she departed, Ingrid walked to stand near her father. She is correct about one thing, she remarked gently. It is not over. Roland placed his hand on his daughter's shoulder. No, it is not. But we're prepared for whatever happens next. Throughout the day, Roland maintained a defeated demeanor, masterfully portraying the deceived husband. He took calls from anxious friends and business acquaintances. His comments were measured and courteous. Michael arrived in the afternoon with a stack of legal documents. I have started the process. He said that papers had spilled across Roland's desk. But Roland, you must be prepared. Brenda is planning to fight dirty. Let her. Roland, examine the paperwork. What have you learned about Scott's business dealings? Michael took out another file. It is fascinating. His most recent development project. The safety inspections are iffy at best. There are several financial irregularities. Good. Roland grinned but did not raise his eyes. Keep digging. I want everything. A notice from Ingrid's laptop interrupted them. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner watching social media and technological communications. Dad. Ingrid called. Her eyes were fixated on the TV. Scott has posted something. A threat. Roland and Michael began to read over her shoulder. The statement was made public on Scott's corporate profile and addressed individuals spreading harmful tales about my personal life. Remember that reputation isn't the only thing that can be ruined. Your acts have consequences. He is desperate, Michael observed. The exposure is causing him pain. Good, Roland responded. Allow him to display his true colors. 2 days of relative quiet passed before the storm hit. Brenda's phone call arrived during dinner. Her voice was harsh with panic and wrath. "What did you do?" she yelled. "All of my cards are refused. My accounts are locked. What about those pictures, these communications?" "Roland, put your phone on speaker. Are you having financial troubles, Brenda? You bastard. Do you know what you did? The whole city is talking about us. Scott's wife is seeking for divorce. His investors are pulling out." "Actually," Ingrid interjected with a clear and calm voice, "I did it." Each message. "Penny, you hijacked our secret meeting. I made sure everyone knew." Brenda's voice resurfaced after a brief period of silence on the line. Deadly quiet. "You are ungrateful litter. Choose your next words carefully," Roland warned, and his tone made even Michael squirm uncomfortably. "You have already stolen from her. You don't get to offend her either. I am your mommy." Brenda growled at Ingrid. "Everything I did was for us and our future." "No," Ingrid cut in. "You did everything for yourself. Everyone knows it now." After the call ended, Michael regarded Roland with anxiety. "They will retaliate. Do you know that?" Roland nodded. "I am counting on it." The following morning saw the expected escalation. Scott Costa's lawyer called Roland's office, threatening legal action for slander and disruption of business connections. Minutes thereafter, Brenda's lawyer demanded a fast and large divorce payment. Roland sat in his home office discussing the threats with Michael. "They're playing directly into our hands," he noted. "Roland." Michael leaned forwards, his expression serious. "I've known you long enough to recognize when you're planning something." "What are we doing here?" Roland rose up and moved towards the window. "Do you remember when we were in college and my business partner attempted to steal our first significant project?" Michael nodded. "You spent 6 months collecting evidence before fully destroying him." Roland went on to say, "I learned something. When someone betrays you, you don't simply defeat them. You ensure they never recover." A knock on the door interrupted them. Ingrid entered with her laptop. "Dad, I discovered something unusual in Mom's email history. She's been speaking with Alexandra Hubbard about Scott's business activities." "Alexandra?" Michael frowned. "Isn't she Brenda's close friend?" "Supposedly." Ingrid responded by rotating her laptop to show them. "But look at these messages. She's been feeding Mom's ego, promoting the affair, and gathering information on both Mom and Scott." Roland's gaze sharpened as he read the conversations. "She is playing both sides. Continue to monitor their communications. Ingrid Alexandra might be handy." The afternoon saw another development. Scott and Brenda arrived at Roland's workplace uninvited. Their faces tightened with barely contained wrath. "Do you believe you can destroy us?" Scott demanded. His normally calm attitude cracked. "I will burn down everything you have built." Roland Remains sat with his posture relaxed. "Mr. Costa, I understand how furious you are. Finding out that your business partners have abandoned you must be upsetting." Brenda snapped. "This is not a game. Fix it. Roland, call off your attack dog for a daughter or what?" Roland's voice went icy. "You will steal more from her. Attempt to damage more lives." He stood slowly. "You both appear to be functioning under a misunderstanding. Do you think this is the worst it can get?" "It is not. Is this a threat?" Scott took an aggressive stance. "No, Mr. Costa, this is a promise." Roland's dark gaze focused on him. "You took my wife. You helped her steal from my daughter. You believed you could rip up my family without repercussions. Now you'll realize how mistaken you were." After they had left, Michael poured them both a drink. "You're playing a risky game, Roland. Scott Costa has connections we do not know about." "I understand," Roland responded. "That is why I have already contacted Alan Trujillo." "The shark." Michael whistled. "He does not come cheaply." "No, he does not. But he is the finest at what he does." Roland sipped his beverage. You've been examining Scott's business operations. Alan has been tracking his personal life. The skeletons are beginning to emerge from the closets. Later that night, Roland was alone in his study. Memories pour across him. He remembered meeting Brenda at college. She laughed. Her dreams. He remembered their wedding day, the pledges they had made. He remembered the moment he discovered she'd changed, developing an obsession with rank and fortune. Ingrid discovered him there, still working after midnight. Dad. I had been thinking about something. What is it, sweetie? Alexandra Hubbard. She's been accumulating information about Scott and Mom for several months, but she has also been gathering information about you. Roland's expression stiffened. Show me. Ingrid opened a series of emails on her laptop. Alexandra had meticulously documented Roland's business operations, social ties, and everyday routines. Roland observed, She's playing a longer game. Keep an eye on her, Ingrid. She may believe she is clever, but she has only given us another weapon to use. Roland's plan came to fruition as the night became darker. He would need to move carefully and methodically. Scott and Brenda had thrown the initial punch, believing they had all the power. Now he'd show them what true power looked like. Dad. Ingrid's voice was quiet. Are you okay? Roland gazed at his daughter, seeing the courage and dedication that reminded him so much of himself. I am all right, honey. We are going to be all right. But as Ingrid went to bed, Roland's countenance deteriorated. He took out his phone and called Alan's number. It's time, he said when the lawyer responded. Start the procedure. I want everything in order before they realize what hit them. Roland's first act of vengeance was completed. The treason had been revealed. The battle lines are drawn. Now began the real war. Roland Livingston had never lost a war in her chamber. Ingrid remained vigilant over the digital battlefield she had built. She'd spent her entire childhood watching her father and learning from his power, his attention to detail and severe attitude against betrayal. Now she would assist him in ensuring that Brenda and Scott learnt the same lesson she had. Never underestimate Roland Livingstone. The seeds of revenge had been planted. The storm was approaching, and no one who had betrayed the Livingstons would escape unscathed. Roland sat in Alan Trujillo's office, inspecting the stack of documents on the mahogany desk. Each document represented a different facet of Scott Costa's economic empire, and each exposed new flaws. Alan tapped a certain file and stated that your friend Michael had done an amazing job. These safety infractions occurred at Costa's newest construction. They aren't just infractions. They constitute criminal carelessness. Roland's dark eyes studied the information. How fast can we move? Anonymous tips to regulatory boards. Alan's narrow lips formed a predatory smile. They will be in location by tomorrow early. But Roland, once we start, there is no turning back. I understand. Roland leaned forwards. Scott Costa attempted to take everything from me. Now I will take everything from him. The following day, Roland watched from his office as news teams descended on Costa Development's flagship project. Inspectors stormed the site, halting construction. Their appearance attracted the attention of both investors and board members. Ingrid left a message on his phone. Dad Scott's stock plunged 15% in its first hour of trading. Roland's response was straightforward. Continue to watch. The dominoes fell precisely as intended. By the end of the week, 3 of Scott's key projects risked regulatory closure. His business partners, smelling blood in the water, began to distance themselves. Each revelation led to another. Each probe resulted in 2 more. Michael arrived at Roland's place that evening with files and a terrible countenance. Brenda's favorite boutiques were featured in the audit reports. You were correct. Their books are a disaster. An anonymous tip. Already finished. The IRS is particularly interested in the cash handling methods. Michael poured himself a drink. Roland. Brenda will be cut off from her favorite shopping destinations. Good. Roland reviewed a document detailing Brenda's recent purchases. She always enjoyed spending other people's money. Let's see how she handles it when the well in her room runs dry. Ingrid kept track of the digital consequences. Social media was buzzing with reports of Costa Development's problems, but something piqued her interest. A succession of concerned posts from her father's investors. Dad. She found him in his study. I believe we have an issue. People are starting to question if your ventures will face similar challenges. Roland nodded, not surprised. Alan is already managing it. Complete transparency. We are releasing our books and websites for inspection. Unlike Scott, we do not have anything to conceal. The telephone rang. Scott cast his secret number. Roland turned it on speaker. Do you think you are clever? Scott's voice trembled from wrath. These are anonymous tips. Scott, there are problems with the inspectors. That is unfortunate. Perhaps if you had spent more time supervising construction rather than seeking other men's wives, I will destroy you for this. Better men than you've tried. Roland's voice remained calm. How does the stock price look? Scott's response was purely profane. Roland stopped the conversation and turned to see Ingrid observing him. He sounds terrified. She made an observation. He should be. Roland opened a document on his computer. His board will receive this tomorrow. The dossier described years of corner cutting, safety infractions, and falsified inspections. Each charge was supported by material that Michael had discovered. But the big blow, Roland said, is from here. He opened another file containing correspondence between Scott and several authorities that suggested bribery and kickbacks. Ingrid examined the evidence. Where did you obtain all of this? Scott isn't the only one with connections, but he's the only one stupid enough to leave a paper trail. The following morning, Roland received an urgent call from Alan. It's finished. The board held an emergency meeting. They're voting to suspend Scott pending an investigation. In other news, your ex-wife's preferred boutiques. 3 of them. I recently had visits from tax auditors. The remainder are set for next week. Roland ended the call. Satisfied? Scott and Brenda's finances were becoming increasingly precarious, but this was only the beginning. Michael's text arrived. You should see this. A video was attached. Brenda attempts to use her credit cards in a high-end retailer. As each one was turned down, I became more irritated. The clip, most likely from security cameras, showed her yelling at the personnel before being hauled away. Should we release it? Michael requested in a follow-up message. Not yet, Roland responded. For the time being, let her humiliation to remain private. That afternoon, Roland met with his own investors and addressed their issues directly. Unlike Scott's hurried attempts at damage control, Roland gave facts and data in complete openness. I understand your worries. He spoke calmly and confidently. That is why I have requested independent auditors to review all of our initiatives. Unlike others in our sector, we have nothing to conceal. As the investors filed out of the meeting, they expressed renewed trust in Roland's leadership. One remained behind. Pastor tried to contact me, the investor remarked quietly. I wanted to discuss shifting some projects to his company. Roland's attitude remained unchanged, and I informed him that I do not do business with sinking ships. Meanwhile, across town, Brenda was dealing with her own issue. Her normal salon had unexpectedly lost her appointment. Her favorite boutique was briefly closed for auditing. Even her favorite restaurants appeared to have perpetual full reservations. She barged into the country club only to be halted at the door. The manager said, I'm sorry, Mrs. Livingston, without sounding regretful. Your membership appears to be suspended. Suspended? Do you know who I am? Yes, ma'am. That is precisely the problem. Brenda, humiliated, fled to Scott's apartment, only to discover him in the throes of his own meltdown. They suspended me. He yelled, flinging a crystal tumbler at the wall. I have my own board. They're discussing a criminal inquiry. Scott, calm down. We need to think. Think. Your ex-husband is gradually destroying everything I've built. Scott rounded on her. Fix it. Brenda, you promised me Roland was weak and would roll over. I didn't think so. Didn't you think at all? Scott grasped her arm firmly. If I fall down, you go with me. Remember that? Back at the Livingston house, Roland discussed the day's events with Michael, and Alan Costa's board suspended him. Alan said that regulatory inquiries had terrified them. There is talk of bringing in forensic accountants, Michael noted. Brenda also frequents those boutiques. 3 have already received audit notifications. The others are scrambling to tidy up their books. Good. Roland reviewed a new collection of documents. How about Alexandra Hubbard? Still playing both sides. Michael confirmed. She has been spreading information about Brenda to her social group while claiming to be supportive. Perfect. Roland's smile was frigid. Let us give her more ammunition. It's time everyone recognized who Brenda Livingston truly is. The next stage of Roland's plan was complete. Financial disaster was only the beginning. Now came the complete devastation of everything. Scott and Brenda had a close relationship. Roland's effort transitioned from financial to psychological warfare with the accuracy of a great strategist. He began by setting up a series of coincidental meetings between Brenda and her former social group. Did you hear one socialite openly question another as Brenda approached her favorite cafe? They discovered abnormalities in all the boutiques she frequented. Someone appears to have helped them avoid taxes in exchange for special arrangements. Brenda froze, flushed at his whispers, and the steps followed her. She departed the cafe only to encounter similar sights everywhere she went. Roland observed from a distance as his ex-wife's social life disintegrated. Each premeditated revelation, each leaked piece of information, caused a wedge between Brenda and her old friends. Alexandra Hubbard proved especially useful in this situation. She went to Roland's workplace one day, eager to take part in the damage. Brenda's desperate Alexandra stated with joy in her voice. She attempted to organize lunch with the charity board yesterday. They all had other responsibilities. How unfortunate, Roland remarked, his tone neutral and Scottish. They are constantly fighting now. He blames her for his business problems, so she promised you would not fight back. Alexandra leaned forwards. I could tell you more. I am sure you could. Roland's dark gaze searched her. Tell me, Alexandra, how long have you been gathering information about my wife? She tensed slightly. I'm only trying to help. No, you're trying to position yourself to profit from her failure. His voice stayed calm. That is okay. Continue doing precisely what you are doing. However, keep in mind that I am well aware of the game you are playing. The threat, subtle but clear, assured Alexandra's ongoing cooperation while also reminding her of her role in the project. Later that day, Scott Costa moved. He burst into Roland's office. Security is close following. You think you're really bright. Scott snarled. Turning my own board against me and halting my endeavor. Mr. Costa, Roland interrupted. Not bothering to stand. Unless you have a warrant or a scheduled appointment. You are trespassing. This is not over, Livingston. Do you believe you can ruin me? I have buddies you can't imagine. Friends? Roland's laughter was frigid. Are you referring to the board members who suspended you? Or maybe it's the investors who are dumping your stock like hazardous waste? Scott's face turned red. You arrogant bastard. Security, Roland called gently. Mr. Costa was just leaving as Scott was let out. He yelled back, Keep an eye on your back, Livingston. Keep a close eye on your lovely girl. Roland's expression clouded. He picked up the phone. Michael, increase. Ingrid's security will contact Alan. It's time for Phase 2. The second phase began with a series of anonymous emails sent to Scott's surviving business partners. Each had documentation of his problematic behaviors. Each suggested more study. Dad, Ingrid entered his study that evening. Scott's wife is doing interviews. She's discussing his affairs. All of them. Roland watched the footage. Scott has a wife. There are tears in her eyes, describes years of infidelity and financial manipulation. The comments section erupted with sympathy for her and contempt of Scott. Continue to observe the answer. Roland guided Brenda through her social media collapse. She's been posting angry rants. I am deleting them, then make more posts. Alexandra's screenshots are being shared everywhere. The psychological pressure increased. Scott's previous pals ignored him. Business associates have ceased returning calls. His social standing, previously based on riches and power, had disintegrated. Brenda experienced similar loneliness. Her efforts to maintain her social status were met with courteous but strong rejection. Even her favorite boutiques were suddenly unable to accommodate her. "This is your fault," she yelled at Scott after another fight in his penthouse. "You promised me everything, but now I have nothing." "Me?" Scott gripped her shoulders firmly. "You mentioned he was feeble. You claimed he wouldn't fight back. Now see, my company is under scrutiny. My reputations harm your reputation." Brenda laughed hysterically. "I cannot even obtain a dinner reservation. My own pals refuse to take my calls." "Friends?" Scott scoffed. "Do you mean the socialites that solely wanted your money? Or the snake Alexandra who has been spreading rumors about you?" Brenda erupted again at the mention of Alexandra. She trusted Alexandra and confided in her, only to realize that her old friend was recording and publicizing every error and indiscretion. Roland received regular reports about their worsening relationship from a variety of sources. Each quarrel, every public appearance, and every frantic attempt to maintain their lifestyle played right into his hands. "They're turning on each other," Michael noticed at one of their planning sessions. "Scott is blaming Brenda for his business woes. She blames him for her social isolation. Good." Roland reviewed new findings from his investigators. "The pressure is working. Now we're going to raise it." The subsequent phase of psychological warfare targeted their specific flaws. Scott took pleasure in his commercial expertise. Anonymous information prompted journalists to look into his previous ventures, finding trend after pattern of corner-cutting and fraud. Brenda's aim was her social status. Rumors were carefully planted to show that she had been living above her means even before the affair began, manipulating Roland and Scott for financial advantage. Sir Roland's assistant interrupted one afternoon. "Mrs. Costa is come to visit you." Scott's wife entered gracefully, despite her obvious discomfort. "Mr. Livingston and I have some information regarding your husband that you may be interested in. About everything. His business dealings, affairs, and plans with your wife." She put a USB drive on his desk. "I hoped I could save our marriage. Now I just want him to pay." Roland checked the drive. "Why come to me?" "Because you are winning," she responded simply. "I want to be on the winning side." The drive included years of Scott's personal and business correspondence. A wealth of information for Roland's campaign. However, the psychological impact was the most important consideration. Scott's wife turned against him. The pressure continued to rise. Scott's surviving business partners received anonymous emails outlining his fraudulent activities. Brenda's social circle was buzzing with new details regarding her manipulation of both husbands. Alexandra delivered an outstanding performance. She didn't understand she was being used just as successfully as she felt she was being used by others. She shared just enough information to maintain her position while feeding the flames of scandal. "Dad!" Ingrid's words interrupted Roland's strategic planning. "I think you should watch this." She showed him her phone. Brenda's social media post was plainly written in a fit of wrath. "Do you think you've won, Roland? Do you believe you can destroy us? Keep an eye on your back. Take care of your darling daughter. This is not over." Roland's expression stiffened. The threat against Ingrid crossed a threshold that he would not allow. It was time to escalate the conflict, to go from psychological pressure to total annihilation. He picked up the phone. "Alan, advance the timeline. It is time for the news conference." The psychological warfare had fulfilled its goal, taking down their fortifications and isolating them from support, turning them against one another. Then came the final phase: public humiliation and total ruin. The press conference was scheduled for Tuesday morning at the city's most famous hotel. Roland had carefully chosen the location. Scott Costa had hosted his company's most successful events there, as well as socialized with investors and politicians. Now it would be the end of his world. "Are you certain about this?" Michael inquired as they studied the presentation one last time. "Once we do something, there is no turning back." "They threatened my daughter," Roland responded, his voice icy. "Now they understand what that means." The ballroom was packed with journalists, business reporters, and social media influencers. Roland had secured optimum coverage. Everyone who cared would witness the destruction. Alan Trujillo was the first to stand on the podium. His presence added seriousness to what was to follow. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. Today we show evidence of widespread fraud, corruption, and criminal carelessness at the most expensive levels of growth." The screens behind him displayed documents, emails, and images. Each piece of evidence was carefully selected and validated. There would be no city of denial. Alan went on to say that the documents demonstrate a 5-year history of safety infractions. Mr. Costa personally approved cost-cutting tactics that put lives in danger. Phones buzzed in the audience as the cost of development stock price dropped. The real-time collapse of Scott's empire was depicted in digits and decimal points. Then followed the personal revelations emails between Scott and various officials, which suggested bribes and kickbacks. Messages sent to several mistresses, including Brenda, disclose promises of wealth and status in exchange for their affections. Mr. Costa didn't only betray his investors, Alan revealed, he betrayed his wife, business partners, and the public's trust. From her position in the audience, Alexandra Hubbard documented everything for her rapidly growing social media following, including real-time commentary. She had no idea her role in this play would last much longer. Scott Costa stormed into the ballroom around halfway through the talk, his expression distorted with wrath. "This is slander. I will sue you all." Roland stepped up to the podium. His calm manner contrasted sharply with Scott's rage. "Mr. Costa, could you please clarify these documents?" He pointed to the screen where Scott's signature appeared on fabricated safety reports. "This is a setup." Scott went forward, but security stopped him. "Livingston, you arranged the entire affair." "Mr. Costa, I did not orchestrate anything. Your own deeds, signatures, and judgments, they speak for themselves." Roland's voice echoed throughout the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, there is more." The following set of slides described Brenda's involvement, her knowledge of the fraudulent methods, her role in entertaining possible investors, and the money path from cost to development via numerous shell companies and into her personal accounts. At the back of the room, Brenda stood frozen, witnessing her reputation fall in real time. Her phone was continuously buzzing with messages from old pals, all of whom were distancing themselves from the burgeoning controversy. Alan declared that this evidence had been delivered to the appropriate authorities. "We expect official inquiries to commence quickly." Scott continued to shout as security took him out of the ballroom. Roland kept his professional demeanor. He answered queries from reporters. Each answer was meant to emphasize the scope of Scott and Brenda's deceptions. "Mr. Livingston," one reporter inquired, "did you have any evidence of these behaviors during your marriage?" Roland responded, "My focus was on building legitimate businesses and providing for my family." The loss of confidence, both personal and professional, was shocking. Following the press briefing, Roland met with Michael and Alan in a separate room. "It's finished," Michael said, checking his phone. Costa Development's shares has been suspended from trade. Alan claimed that the board has called for his immediate resignation, and Brenda has already received inquiries from the IRS regarding her financial transactions with Scott. The boutiques she frequented are also being investigated for tax fraud and money laundering. Roland nodded with satisfaction. Now we wait for the true devastation to occur. The aftermath was quick and harsh. By evening, major news networks had published stories on Costa Development's unscrupulous tactics. Social media erupted with screenshots of Scott's emails and Brenda's lavish spending. Brenda's urgent phone call arrived shortly before midnight. "You have damaged everything," she sobbed. "My friends and my reputation. How could you do this to me? I did nothing to you, Brenda. You did it to yourself." Roland's voice stayed steady. "You decided to betray your family. You decided to steal from your daughter. You selected Scott Costa. You can now live with those decisions. Thank you, Roland. I need help. Money, only momentarily. Goodbye. Brenda." He ended the conversation and turned to see Ingrid standing in his study doorway. "She called you for money." His daughter's voice was full of skepticism and disgust. "She has always valued fortune above loyalty." Roland motioned for Ingrid to join him. "Are you okay with all of this?" "They threatened us, Father. They threatened me." Ingrid's expression stiffened. "They deserve everything they receive." The following few days saw a cascade of effects. Scott's business partners have filed lawsuits. Regulatory bodies conducted formal investigations. His wife has filed for divorce. Brenda was rejected by her old social group after revealing evidence of his infidelity and financial malfeasance. Alexandra Hubbard, playing her role flawlessly, continued to disclose facts about Brenda's fall from grace while maintaining a veneer of concerned friendship. During a strategy discussion, Michael noticed that your idea had worked perfectly. They are absolutely secluded. Their reputations are shattered. All of this is the result of their own activities. Almost perfect. Roland made a correction. There's still the issue of Alexandra Hubbard. How about her? She did her part well, yet she is a loose end. Someone who is comfortable with betrayal cannot be trusted. Roland opened a file on his computer. She has been accumulating information on everyone involved, hoping to profit from all sides. It's time to show her the cost of playing those games. Act Two's last phase began. Scott and Brenda were ruined. Their world was wrecked by their acts and attitude. But Roland Livingston's vengeance was not entirely complete. There were still pieces to be moved and repercussions to be administered. Alexandra Hubbard will discover that her deceptive games had consequences. Scott Costa would learn that financial devastation was only the beginning. Brenda would finally realize what she had thrown away. The execution of revenge was nearly complete, but the storm had not yet passed. Roland had arranged their collapse. Now he'd watch as they tore each other apart in their desperate bid to survive. Roland studied the day's reports with delight. His opponents had underestimated his ability to exact revenge. That blunder had cost them everything: their wealth, prestige, connections, and future. Dead. Ingrid entered with her laptop. "Scott is trying to exit the country. His private jet has filed a flight plan for tomorrow a.m. Roland smiled coldly. "Send the information to Alan. Let us see how far Mr. Costa gets." The stage was set for the final act of his vengeance. Another premeditated assault at those who dared to threaten his family. Roland Livingston sat in his study, surrounded by evidence of his enemy's demise, and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The execution of retribution was complete. The reckoning would occur next. The security footage appeared on Roland's laptop screen. Scott Costa approaches Ingrid's school, seeking to slip past the guards. His daughters are scared. Roland's ears were still ringing from the call. Dad was here. He tried. Roland's fingers tightened on his desk, turning his knuckles white. A line had been crossed. Scott Castor had made a grave mistake by threatening his daughter. "I want everything." Roland spoke into his cell phone. "Tax returns, company transactions, personal accounts, and anything else that is not entirely lawful. I want it now." Alan Trujillo responded, "I'm already on it." "But Roland, if we go this aggressively..." I don't care about the legal ramifications. He attempted to hurt my daughter. Roland hung up the phone and turned to Michael, who was watching him with anxiety. Michael said, "Whatever you are planning, I am with you." That's good, since this is over now. Roland opened a succession of documents on his computer. Contact our private investigators. I want to know everything about Scott's business relationships, especially the ones he keeps private. The investigative report arrived within hours. Scott expense. His enterprise was not based primarily on legal construction ventures. There were shadow corporations, disguised accounts, and ties to questionable organizations. Roland smiled coldly. Perfect. He launched his attack with precision strikes at Scott's vulnerable places. Anonymous tips to regulatory bodies revealed significant safety issues in Costa's buildings. Building inspectors swooped on his properties and discovered numerous code breaches that required rapid repair. Sir Roland's assistant interrupted his plans. The first demolition crew has arrived at Costa's riverside development. Roland stared at his office window, watching as the wrecking balls demolished Scott's pride and pleasure, a luxurious apartment complex that compromised structural integrity. His phone vibrated. Ingrid sent him a video link. The destruction was live-streamed, and comments regarding Costa Development's recklessness poured in. Dad Ingrid entered his office with her laptop under her arm. Scott is attempting to access his offshore funds. Should I block him? Roland commanded. Freeze everything. Ingrid's fingers rushed across the keyboard. Done. He is unable to access any of his cash resources. The next step was aimed at Brenda. Roland had produced a full dossier on her life, including images from her undergraduate years when she battled to make ends meet. He arranged for these photographs to be distributed to her social circle, along with reports of her most recent financial maneuvers. Please. Brenda's voice cracked on the phone. Roland, you need to stop this. I've got nothing left. Nothing remained. Roland's voice became arctic. You've still got your life. Be grateful for that. You assisted Scott in making a threat against our daughter. I didn't realize he would. Goodbye. Brenda. Later that day, Michael delivered additional news. Scott's business partners are turning against him. They are bringing lawsuits, claiming they were misled about the company's policies. Roland nodded, satisfied, and the authorities' tax fraud inquiry gets started. The evidence we presented was compelling. A notification appeared on Roland's computer. An email from one of Scott's former associates detailing years of bribery and kickbacks. The individual attempted to defend himself by providing proof against his former boss. Send it to Alan. Roland gave instructions. It is time to send in federal investigators. The next morning, Scott's world descended into pandemonium. Federal officials raided Costa Development's offices and removed boxes of records. News teams captured it all. Scott's demise will be shown in real time. Dad! Ingrid's voice was quiet. Scott is at the airport. He wants to flee the nation. Roland picked up the phone. Alan, execute Plan B within hours. Scott Costa found himself handcuffed. His effort to depart was foiled by officials who had been warned about his plans. Did you do this? Scott yelled as he was dragged away. I will murder you, Livingston. I will destroy all you cherish. Roland viewed the video of Scott's arrest with cold delight. Now, Scott, you've destroyed yourself. That evening, Roland met Michael in his study. There are still threats that we have been receiving. Michael shifted uneasily about this. I need to tell you something. But before Roland could proceed, his security system detected an intruder. On the cameras, he noticed guys in black clothing approaching his home. Get Ingrid to the safe room, Roland ordered. The following hours would demonstrate that Roland Livingston's reputation for ruthlessness was well-deserved. Scott's secret links had moved. But Roland was more than prepared. Roland stood in his office, surveying the damage from the previous night's attempted invasion. His security team handled the issue effectively. Scott's hired thugs were now in police custody. A knock on his door revealed Alexandra Hubbard, looking as polished as ever despite the early hour. "Roland, I heard what occurred. I have knowledge that you may find useful. Come inside." "Alexandra." Roland spoke in a friendly tone, but his eyes were calculating. "Please tell me about your deal with Scott." She faltered somewhat. "I don't know what you want." Roland interrupted by pushing a folder across his desk. "Let us not waste time with denials. I have copies of all of your communications." Alexandra's composure broke. "I was simply attempting to protect myself. You need to understand." "I understand completely. You played both sides, feeding information to the person you thought would win." Roland leaned forwards. "But you made a mistake. You assumed I would not find out. What are you planning to do?" Roland smiled, his expression devoid of emotion. "Nothing. I plan to accomplish nothing at all. Your pals and social circle. They'll do it for me when they see these." He taps the folder. "You cannot." "I already have. Check your phone." Alexandra's phone buzzed with notifications about her betrayals, manipulations, and attempts to benefit on both sides. All of this was now public knowledge. "How does it feel?" Roland asked quietly. "To lose what you've built through betrayal, leaving Alexandra to her demise." Roland proceeded to his next target. Brenda had been silent recently. His phone rang, signaling him to be silent. Michael provided an update. She's trying to sell her narrative to the newspapers by portraying herself as a victim. Perfect. Roland had anticipated the move. Released the recordings hours later. Audio clips inundated social media, revealing Brenda's planned manipulation of Roland and Scott, theft from her daughter's trust fund, and cold disregard of family bonds in favor of cash. The last strike came from an unexpected source. Scott's wife gave a news conference disclosing years of manipulation by both Scott and Brenda. They believed they could mess with people's lives, she told the cameras, destroy families for personal gain. They were wrong. Roland viewed the coverage from his office. Ingrid is near him. "Was it worthwhile?" his daughter inquired gently. "They threatened you," Roland responded. "That made it necessary." The telephone rang. Brenda returned, but this time her voice was different, broken. "I understand now," she muttered. "What I threw away is what I lost." "Roland, please." "No." His voice was final. "You selected this route, Brenda. Now walk alone." Later that evening, it was revealed that Scott Castor had attempted to make a deal with prosecutors, promising evidence against his business colleagues in exchange for leniency. "It won't work," Allen said. "The evidence against him is too compelling. He faces terrible consequences." Roland nodded. Satisfied? Brenda, too. "The IRS is quite interested in her financial activity. Tax fraud, money laundering. She'll be lucky to avoid prison." Roland turned after hearing a commotion in the corridor. Alexandra stood there, her typical polish gone and replaced with frantic wrath. "You devastated me. She accused my buddies, my reputation. You wrecked yourselves." Roland made a correction. "I simply showed everyone who you truly are." Security escorted her out. Roland reflected on the cost of vengeance he had earned, completely and entirely. His adversaries were destroyed. Their lives were devastated by their own acts and his deliberate exposing of their actual natures. Michael found him later and poured them both a drink. "We need to discuss such threats," he said, seriously about the security I arranged. Roland gazed at his oldest buddy, his understanding growing. "Have you been handling it all along?" Michael nodded. "I could not allow them hurt you or Ingrid. I made some plans and called in some favors." "Thank you." Roland simply meant what he said. The cost of revenge had been costly. However, Roland Livingston had paid it gladly. His opponents had realized the consequences of treason, and his family was protected. That's all that mattered. 6 months later, Roland stood in his new office, which overlooked a different metropolitan skyline. The transfer was necessary not out of fear, but for a new beginning. Mr. Livingston and his assistant's voices could be heard over the intercom. Margie Cherry of the Daily Chronicle is here. Roland had expected this. The journalist had been tenacious in her pursuit of the tale, and he was finally prepared to reveal it. Send her inside. Margie entered, recorder in hand. Thank you for finally deciding to meet with me. Roland acknowledged that you had conducted a comprehensive inquiry. What do you want to know? What's the truth? She responded simply. What exactly happened to Scott Costa and Brenda Livingston? Roland motioned for her to sit. The reality is simple. They betrayed the wrong individual. He spent the next hour laying out the story. Not all of it, but sufficient. He told her about the infidelity, the theft from his daughter's trust fund, and the threats to his family, and now Margie has requested. Scott Costa is in prison. Brenda Livingston is facing charges. Their social circle has been decimated. Do you regret anything? No. Roland's voice was forceful. They selected their way. I merely made sure they faced the consequences. After the interview, Roland spotted Ingrid at the building's tech center, which she developed. His daughter had developed during the previous year, becoming stronger and more confident. I reviewed the draft of your college application essay, he stated. It's quite powerful. Ingrid grinned slightly. I wrote about loyalty, about discovering what truly important in life. Roland nodded, pleased of the woman his daughter was becoming. She had survived the storm beside him, demonstrating her strength and wisdom. A notice on his phone drew his attention. Michael is bringing him an update on Scott's latest appeal being denied. Costa would serve the full term for fraud and attempted intimidation. Dad Ingrid's voice drew him back. Are you content with how things came out? Roland thought about the question carefully. I'm at ease, he finally said. We are safe. We are united. And the people who threatened us will never hurt us again. Later that day, he met with Michael for their usual meal. His friend had now told him the entire tale of how he safeguarded them from Scott's criminal ties, including the relationships he had formed to keep them safe. You didn't have to do all that, Roland explained. Yes, I did. Michael's voice was forceful. You are family. The talk shifted to their new humanitarian foundation, which focuses on helping youngsters from damaged homes. It was Ingrid's idea to convert their experience into something wonderful. Michael said, she's remarkable. After everything that's happened, she's considering assisting others. Roland agreed. He spoke with pride in his voice. She's stronger than the rest of us. As they talked, Roland's phone vibrated with a news alert. Brenda's trial date was scheduled. His ex-wife would be held accountable for her financial misdeeds. Her meticulously built world of privilege is complete, destroyed. Any regrets? Michael asked gently. Roland reflected on the past year, the treachery, vengeance, and the repercussions. No, he replied. Finally, they made their decisions. I merely made certain they lived with them. The evening concluded with Roland arriving home to discover Ingrid working on the Foundation's website. She looked up as he arrived, her face solemn. I saw the news about Mom, she said. Are you okay? I am. Roland sat next to her. Are you in? Yes. Ingrid's voice was forceful. She prioritized money and status over family. That was her error. Roland stared at his daughter, recognizing the courage and knowledge she had garnered from their journey. They had survived. They emerged stronger, while those who deceived them lost everything. The retaliation was complete. Roland Livingston had demonstrated that treason had a price that no one was willing to pay. He had safeguarded his family, punished his foes, and emerged from the conflict not weaker, but stronger. Ultimately, that was all that counted. Family loyalty and the assurance that no one would ever try to threaten them again. Epilogue. 10 years later, at the age of 55, Roland Livingston appeared on the podium of the famous architectural award ceremony to accept his Lifetime Achievement Award. His dark hair now had distinctive silver streaks at the temples, but his presence remained dominating and his reputation was stronger than ever. He warned the crowd that success is not built on compromise. It is based on strong principles and uncompromising loyalty. The audience applauded, unaware of the underlying meaning of his statements. Ingrid Livingston, 25, sat in the front row and proudly observed her father. She had matured into an attractive woman. Her knowledge and determination are clear in her bearing. Following the wedding, they met in his private office at Livingston Architectural Enterprises, which is now one of the largest firms in the nation. Ingrid, the company's chief technology officer, said, "That was an impressive speech, Dad." She settled into her normal chair. She had enhanced their technological powers while keeping their security with the same caution she had demonstrated in her youth. "How is the foundation doing?" Roland inquired, alluding to the Livingston Family Foundation, an organization dedicated to assisting children from broken homes. "We are growing stronger each year and will establish 3 new centers next month." Ingrid opened up the numbers on her tablet. "We've assisted over 10,000 families thus far." Roland nodded, satisfied that their former pain had been transformed into something useful. He had never modified his position on betrayal. "Have you heard the latest about Scott Casta?" Ingrid inquired, her tone bland. Roland's visage darkened slightly. "Michael mentioned something. Scott Casta was freed from prison 2 years ago, having served 8 years for fraud, attempted intimidation, and several financial offenses. He had emerged as a broken man, his once powerful kingdom reduced to ashes. His efforts to rebuild were met with closed doors and cold shoulders. Roland's influence ensured that Costa remained an outcast in the business world. He attempted to approach one of our minor contractors." Ingrid continued. "They promptly declined his business and reported it to us." "Good." Roland's voice possessed the same grit as it did a decade ago. Some debts cannot be repaid. The subject shifted to Brenda. After spending 5 years for financial fraud, she tried to rebuild her life in another city. Her social standing was gone. Her previous friends have since abandoned her. According to recent sources, she worked as a sales clerk in a modest department shop. A far cry from her days of luxury and comfort, she wrote another letter to the charity, as Ingrid suggested. This time, Roland lifted an eyebrow. Brenda had made countless attempts at reconciliation over the years, but each one had been received with silence. Her treason had resulted in her eternal exile from their lives. "I handled it," Ingrid reassured him. "She will not be contacting us again." Michael Dugan walked into the office, now a senior partner at his law firm, but still Roland's best friend and advisor. The years had only deepened their bond, which had been built by loyalty and tested by fire. "The Anderson merger is complete," he stated, smiling. "But that can wait. We are celebrating tonight, remember?" Roland gave a faint smile. The yearly dinner at his home had become a ritual, bringing together individuals who had demonstrated their allegiance over the years. Alexandra Hubbard's name appeared in social sections on occasion, but her power had never recovered after Roland's methodical assault of her reputation. She had learnt the hard way that betrayal has lifelong ramifications. Later that evening, Roland's enormous home was crowded with trusted friends and co-workers, symbolizing the new life he had constructed based on earned trust and demonstrated loyalty. "Remember the journalist Margie Cherry?" Michael asked during supper. "She is writing a book about business ethics. They want to interview you again." Roland considered it. Margie's article from years ago was balanced, offering the facts while letting readers to draw their own views regarding justice and vengeance. Set things up, He determined some stories needed to be told. Ingrid's talk with her own apprentice, a young IT specialist she was mentoring, grabbed her father's attention from across the room. They both realized that while the past had shaped them, it had not defined them. The Livingston name now represented more than just vengeance. It exemplified quality, integrity, and unsafe ring ideals. Roland had constructed an empire bigger than Scott Castor could have imagined, and his foes had been reduced to cautionary tales. Dad Ingrid approached later after the guests had left. "I've been considering increasing the Foundation's reach. There is a need for services that assist people rebuild after betrayal." Roland examined his daughter, who was intelligent, strong, and had the same steel in her spine that he had taught her. "Tell me more." As they discussed future plans, Roland pondered on the previous decade. His vengeance had been complete, but it had just been the beginning. He had taught the world that loyalty was important. That transgression had consequences, and his strength sprang from unshakable convictions in his personal studies, a framed article displayed on the wall. The Price of Betrayal, The Livingston Legacy, by Margie Cherry. It served as a reminder that justice, however cold, was absolute. The next morning, reports broke that Scott Castor had been seen drinking alone in a shabby tavern, talking about previous glory. Publishers had rejected his memoir proposal. His narrative is only noteworthy as a warning about the consequences of crossing the wrong man. Roland read the report with no emotion. He had already outgrown the need for acts of vengeance. His adversary's continuing suffering was merely the logical outcome of their decisions. Mr. Livingston's assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Your daughter's team discovered an attempt to access outdated company files. They traced it back to Brenda's location. Handle it according to protocol." Roland gave instructions. His stance on security and threats had not changed over the years. That afternoon, he met with the board of directors and presented plans for the company's future growth. Everyone in the room respected him. It had been a decade, maybe more, and his reputation for both excellence and an unwavering response to betrayal had only increased. "The cost of developing the properties we acquired has been radically altered." His VP of operations said that all traces of their old owner had been removed. Roland nodded with satisfaction. He had meticulously purchased and repaired everything Scott had previously possessed. He transformed failing projects into successful developments that served as monuments to his victory. He spent the evening reviewing applications for the Foundation's scholarship program. Each story about a child who had been betrayed bolstered his conviction that their mission was important. "These children deserve a shot," Ingrid replied, joining him in the examination. "Just like you gave me." Roland glanced at his daughter, his finest accomplishment and staunchest ally. "We give them more than one chance. We teach kids about strength." The years had shown that vengeance, when properly implemented, could both create and destroy. The Livingston Empire stood as a witness to this reality while their opponents persisted. Downfall acted as a warning to others who were considering betrayal. Michael arrived at their weekly supper with a file. "Remember the offshore account that we froze 10 years ago? Costa's lawyers are still seeking to have it unlocked." Roland smiled coldly. "Allow them to try." The talk shifted to the future. New projects broaden influence, strengthening alliances. Roland had created something unbreakable, based on betrayal lessons, but expanding beyond them in her own office. Ingrid oversaw the digital security that safeguarded their empire. Her technological abilities had improved over the years, building an impenetrable shield around everything they had developed. A notice from one of her monitoring systems piqued her interest. Alexandra Hubbard had been trying to reconnect with their social group while still playing games. Ingrid mumbled, triggering mechanisms that would silently close those doors. The sun fell over the metropolitan skyline, glinting off the Livingston Tower, which dominated the financial area. Roland went over plans for their next major project in his office, a development that would solidify their legacy. Sir and his assistant appeared at the door. "Your grandson is here." Roland's scowl softened significantly as 5-year-old James rushed into the office, the youngster both his mother's intelligence and his grandfather's tenacity. The next generation of Livingston's legacy. He was taught from a young age. Michael inquired, entering behind the child. Roland responded, "He needs to understand what matters." Loyalty. Principal repercussions. The boy was already showing signs of understanding, displaying the same calm strength that distinguished his family. Roland had ensured that past lessons would be used to defend future generations. Later that night, as Roland was about to leave the workplace, he received one more report. Scott Castor had been rejected a business loan. This was his 7th rejection that year. Brenda's most recent attempt to contact them was prevented before it reached them. Alexandra's social media following had shrunk again. He closed the file without commenting. Their futures were sealed by their decisions. Their ongoing struggles are only an echo of justice done long ago. Everything had changed over the course of the decade, except Roland's core essence. He remained unforgiving of betrayal, firm in his values, and fiercely protective of what he had accomplished. His opponents had discovered too late that some persons could not be deceived without long-term consequences. As he drove home, the city lights reflected off buildings with the Livingston name. He had transformed vengeance into an empire, justice into a legacy, and betrayals and lessons into strength that would last for centuries. Roland Livingston's story had evolved beyond a tale of vengeance. It demonstrated the force of unshakable ideals, the value of loyalty, and the absolute knowledge that acts had long-lasting consequences. He was studying that night. Roland stared at a family portrait of himself, Ingrid, her husband, and young James. They symbolized everything he had safeguarded and constructed. Proof that from treachery and ashes, something greater may emerge. The empire he had constructed would last for centuries. He was guided by proven ideals. Above all, fidelity is tested in the fire, betrayal, without forgiveness and unwavering strength. Roland Livingston's vengeance had stopped long ago, but its lessons would reverberate indefinitely. In the end, it was his biggest victory. Not only does he demolish his opponents, but he also builds something strong from the wreckage of their betrayal. Here's the next story. "Seriously?" Nina grumbled, slumped against her front door and softly knocked the back of her head against it before locking herself out after inspecting the mail. Logan called from his doorway across the corridor, chuckling. "I thought you had a spare key under the mat for cases like this." "I did." Nina pouted and stared down at her sneakers, "but I used it yesterday and forgot to put it away. Fortunately, I had you give me a copy." Logan laughed and went into his flat to get the extra key. Nina mumbled, "I'm starting to think that getting my master's degree is overrated." "Geez, can I get out of my apartment before the existential crisis?" Logan teased before returning to unlock her door. "Sorry. So what's the issue this time? I have a paper due in 2 days and I'm absolutely stuck. Why am I doing this? I have a good job. All this master's is doing is destroying my social life and turning me like a zombie at work because of those ridiculous night classes." Logan blinked. She managed to say everything in one breath, which surprised me. He believed she was very stressed this time. "When was the last time you left your apartment for anything other than work, class, or to pick up the mail?" he inquired, following her inside. "Which month is it?" Nina responded with a tired smirk. Logan roared into laughter. "Okay, that is it. Give me my key back. Where are your spares? Place it under the mat where it belongs. Get your keys and come on. We're going out to breakfast and then taking a long walk to clear your mind. Didn't you hear me? I have a paper due Monday night and am experiencing writer's block. I do not have time for this." "You don't have the time not to," Logan shot back. "So, Are you coming willingly, or will I have to carry you, without waiting for another protest? Logan led Nina out of her apartment and into his car, where he drove her to a quiet, small breakfast restaurant that made omelets just the way she liked. Are you happy right now? Nina groaned, sounding like a child forced to eat her vegetables. But deep down, she couldn't stay angry with Logan for long. They became good friends 5 years ago, and he was her rock during the insanity of her master's degree. Logan grinned. I'm glad you finally fed that brain of yours. Let's get that gray matter moving with a good walk. Nina, groaning but secretly grateful, let Logan drag her out of the diner. When they returned to their residential complex, he guided her down the twisting path behind the building, eager to help her relieve stress as they walked. Logan began asking Nina questions about work and her studies in general, followed by her paper at the halfway point of their stroll. Nina achieved a breakthrough. That is it. I was viewing the project from the wrong perspective. Nina jumped into place and began pounding the air in triumph. What would you do differently? The friends continued to stroll back to their apartments. Logan kept asking Nina probing questions about her new enlightenment to keep her from losing track of her stream of thinking. When he got home, he saw Nina march in her door, ready to tackle her paper after overcoming her writer's block. Logan smiled as he walked across the hall to his apartment, where he got himself some coffee. Logan still had that smile. Fiona would be extremely proud of me. He had a thought. He sat at the kitchen table with his coffee, allowing his thoughts to roam. His sister was the more intelligent of the two OSHA children. Words and numbers always appear to come naturally to her. Logan was superior in science and, as it turned out, culinary arts. His father was greatly disappointed. When Logan was having problems completing a paper for school, Fiona was right there to assist him sift out his thoughts. She'd bring him into the kitchen and ask him to make her a snack. As he did this, she would converse with him in the same way that he had with Nina. Fiona would start by asking Logan about his girlfriend or the newest movie, then move on to school and the current class. Once there, she would gently coax Logan into completing the job by asking questions to help him organize his thoughts. Fiona was inevitably compensated with a tasty snack, while Logan received a higher grade on his project. He cleaned out his coffee mug and placed it in the strainer. He murmured a silent prayer of gratitude to his Fiona for everything she had done for him and continuing to do. Logan followed up with Nina later that evening. "How's it going?" Logan inquired as Nina opened the door. "Great. I just need to document a couple more references, spell check and proofread, and it should be ready by Monday." Nina left Logan in the doorway while she returned to her desk. "Good news." "Okay. Grab your coat." Logan allowed himself in and closed the door behind him. "Why?" "Because it is getting colder now that it is dark outside. And I don't want you to get sick before you submit your paper." "Logan, I do not need a weather report." "Why do I need this coat?" "Where am I going?" "You are bringing me out to dinner." "I am, yes." "Why?" "Because you are appreciative for my assistance with your paper, and it's my birthday. I'm grateful and happy birthday, but I don't have the money to take you out to celebrate. I do not get paid till next week. That's fine. I'm purchasing, but if I'm taking you out, should I buy something? My mother would be furious if I ever let a woman pay for my dinner. Why not make dinner instead?" "I've tried your cooking." Logan avoided the balled-up paper that Nina flung at him. "You've been cooped up here all day. You need to move venues for a few hours. I went out this morning, remember? Besides, I am not ready. I told you I needed to finish recording my references, spell check and proofread. I remember. Can I obtain a refund on my birthday? It only happens once a year. Please, where are the references that you need to document?" Nina pointed at the list on top of a stack of papers beside her elbow. "Just type them in. Don't you type above 50 words per minute? Spell check will take no time," he continued, looking over her shoulder at the computer screen. "You've already set it to autocorrect. Proofreading can wait until tomorrow. After a full night's sleep with relaxed eyes, I can add a second set. So take a shower and clean up. I will be back in 45 minutes to get you. What happens if I don't open the door? I will use my key. Logan gave her a wicked Irish grin and winked as he departed. Exactly 45 minutes. Logan was back at Nina's door. He knocked once and got no answer. As he was ready to knock again, Nina threw open the door. Logan had to take a minute to collect his breath. He'd seen Nina dressed for a variety of events, including business casual and parties, but she looked very different tonight. Logan thought of the adjective classy. I hope I am dressed appropriately. Nina was tentative, misinterpreting Logan's silence as condemnation. You never told me where we were headed. I simply assumed it would be somewhere a little more upper class. Sorry, you look fantastic. Yes, you are definitely dressed correctly. Logan couldn't understand why his throat felt dry. The couple had an excellent supper with all the trimmings. Logan guided Nina to an empty table in the lounge area adjacent to the restaurant so they could continue their talk. What will Emily think of you being out with me on a Saturday night, especially on your birthday? Won't she be upset? She's already out. Out of the picture. We broke up approximately 2 weeks ago. I apologize. It simply goes to show how out of touch I have been. I tell you, it makes me wonder why I am even pursuing my master's degree. I am not sure if it is all worth it. You know it'll happen. It does not disturb me that you were unaware of Emily in me. You've got other responsibilities lately. As you can tell, Emily's absence doesn't disturb me. She was becoming overly possessive anyway. I should have been there. You dropped everything when Chris and I had our major argument and broke up. By the way, this is another product of my master's program. I should have been there for you. I was there for you. Because that sparked the entire incident in the hallway. Masters or not, you are better off without him. But I wouldn't worry about myself. You're here today to help me celebrate my birthday. Want to dance? Just then, the band played a mellow song. Logan took Nina to the floor, where they performed a variety of slow and fast dances. They talked and laughed all night. Thank you so much for an amazing night, Logan began after leading Nina back to her door. I can't recall having as much fun celebrating my birthday or being in such great company. Fantastic company. You're welcome. Nina placed her arms around Logan's waist. Happy birthday, pal. Logan threw his arms around her and pressed her against his body, resting her head beneath his chin. He bent down and kissed the top of her head before letting her enter her flat. Tuesday evening, the neighbors gathered by the mailboxes. How did the class go last night? Good. Thank you for helping me proofread on Sunday. I submitted in my paper on schedule, and I should receive it in a week or two. I have an exam in my class tomorrow night. How many more classes do you have to take? These are it. If all goes well, I should finish my classes this winter. That will simply leave me to finish my thesis and submit it. I'm hoping to be completely finished by late spring. We'll need to do something unique then. Nina and Logan both got caught up in their schedules. Nina worked extra hours on a professional project, and Logan worked beyond hours to accommodate special party requests at the restaurant. 2 weeks had passed when Nina knocked on Logan's door. Hey, what up? Logan observed Nina standing smugly, hands behind her back. I've brought you something. Can I come inside? Let me guess. Sniff. Did you get your document back? That's correct, she replied as she entered his apartment and sniffed. You also received a decent grade on it. Congratulations. How did you know? Nina placed the bag on the table and gave Logan a dubious glance. Getting out the plates and utensils, Logan explained. It's quite simple, Murphy. It's been a few weeks since you submitted your paper. Given that you brought anything for me, I assumed you received your grade back smelling it. I could see you didn't cook, therefore the grade must have been good. Dodging her playful jabs, he retrieved the Chinese food from the sack. Want to join me? Logan gave Nina an easygoing smile. I'm not sure if I should after that comment about my cooking. Come on, you know I am the superior cook. There aren't many things I do better than you, so you have to give me a chance to tease. You only cook better than me because you do so professionally, and you only believe I don't cook well because you are a finicky eater. Nina stood there with her fists on her hips, pouting after she finished speaking. Logan quickly began giggling at Nina's position. Nina soon joined in and began laughing. They then sat down to eat the food of triumph. Darn it, not again. Nina refrained from bashing her head on the door. This time, she gently knocked on Logan's door, thinking he was home. "What is wrong with you? You look terrible." "Thank you, pal. I knew I could count on you to provide an honest evaluation of the situation." Nina laid her head against Logan's door frame. "Listen, may I borrow my key? I took a lift home from work and left my keys in my desk. I have a severe migraine. I simply want to go inside and lie down." Logan took Nina's key and opened the door while assisting her inside. He gently removed her coat and the bag she was carrying. "Get changed and lie down on your bed. I'll be in your room within a minute." "Look, Logan, I appreciate your use of the key, but I need to sleep. I don't mean to be harsh, but there is nothing you can do to help my migraine. I've received them before. It would be best if I just tried to sleep it off. Go do what you're told. No arguments. If what I plan to do does not work, please let me know. I told you so. When you're feeling better. Now go." Nina threw out her tongue at Logan before trudging to her room to change. Logan gently rapped on her door. A few moments later, Nina was climbing into bed. "Decent. No. Go away. I simply want to sleep." Logan chuckled as he entered the darker room, holding the door open to let some light in. He delivered a pan of boiling towels. "Lie on your stomach, straighten your legs, relax. What are you planning to do?" "I simply want to sleep. I once knew someone who experienced frequent migraines. I looked into massage treatment and how it could be used to relieve some of the pressure. It helped her headaches the majority of the time. So please relax and let me to get to work." Nina protested when Logan attempted to pull her shirt. "I have heated towels to help relax your back muscles before I begin working on them. It will not assist if your clothing becomes drenched. This one fits too tightly. Let's take it off in our sweatpants. I assumed you were going to put on shorts. You always wear shorts in your flat. You will need to change into these." Nina lacked the energy to fight, so she laid quietly while Logan helped her shift. Logan began massaging her feet and legs with warm cloths on her back, which felt nice. She wasn't sure which felt better, the soothing heat on her back or Logan's expert hands. Logan was trying hard to focus on what he was doing. It was difficult with her lying there in only her panties and warm towels. He felt he could handle it. After all, she felt like another sister to him, but he wasn't thinking about his sister in the way a brother should. He had always known she was cute, but he had never considered her seductive until now. Logan finished her legs, wrapped them with blankets, and removed the cooling towels from her back. As he worked on her back, he could feel her melting in his hands. Her intermittent sighs of relief faded. Logan realized Nina had fallen asleep peacefully by the time he was finished with her back. He covered her, washed the towels, and exited her room, slamming the door behind him. Logan hung out at Nina's place, waiting to see whether she felt better. He attempted to keep busy by making a few meals in case Nina was hungry when she awoke. If she wanted to eat, she could just put the dish in the microwave. He finally sat down in the living room, holding one of her magazines. "Hello? What time is it?" Nina patted down the hallway dressed in a thick green robe. "Have you been here the entire time?" "It's just 8 hours. How do you feel?" "Are you hungry? I prepared some food in case you wish to eat. I wasn't sure what you wanted, though. It will take only a few minutes to cook. I suppose you've been here the whole time. I wanted to make sure you were feeling better and offer you the opportunity to tell me. I told you so. Well, I'm feeling better, thank you again. You always seem to be there for me. That is why we have friends, right? Anyway, are you hungry?" A tiny amount, I think. I can't believe I immediately feel better. Let's chat about it while dinner is cooking. Nina sat on the sofa as Logan went into the kitchen to reheat up a meal in the microwave. When he returned, Nina moved closer to him, his arms encircling her shoulders. Chris phoned me the other night. We went out to lunch today, and he was attempting to apologize. He wants to get back together. After lunchtime. The shit hit the fan on a project I'm working on, so I needed to smooth things over with a client. I have to work all weekend to clean up the mess that someone else made, and I have a week to do it. Another paper is due for my Monday night class. Did I give you enough? Dr. Logan's prescription is to eat a healthy dinner, which is currently heating up. Naturally. Take a long soak in a really warm bath, preferably with a slight centimeter of water and room. I don't have any bathtubs, beads, or anything like that. I believe Emily could have left something at my apartment. She always liked that kind of stuff. Anything else? Doctor? Yes. After your long soak, snuggle into bed with your warm covers and sleep until you wake up. There's no alarm. Sounds wonderful, but I'm too busy to take a night off and then sleep in on Saturday. Did you come home with a migraine? Correct? Correct. Aside from eating dinner, what would you have done differently to alleviate your migraine? Would you still go to bed early? Will you actually remember to set your alarm for tomorrow? Besides, you wake up early. Every day you'd sleep in until around 8-9 a.m. Okay, you have made your point. I believe I'll take that medication, doctor. Good. Dinner is ready when they finished eating. Logan walked to his apartment to get the bath beads, while Nina washed the dishes. When he got back, he began Nina's tub and added the beads to the warm water. Logan sent Nina off to bathe when the bath was ready. Logan anxiously knocked on Nina's door. A week had passed since the neighbors had a chance to speak. Hello, Logan? What up? I have a tremendous favor to ask, and I'll tell you right now that it's not fair. Nina's interest was piqued when she unlocked the door to let Logan in. I just returned from a hike. Let me get some water and I'll be right with you. So which one? Nina took 2 waters from the kitchen. When she returned to the living room, she saw Logan wringing his hands in his lap. What is going on, Logan? Nina sat across from him so she could better observe him. I need you to come over for dinner on Friday night. Not an issue. However, it appears to be rather innocuous. There is a catch. Logan took a large drink of water and nearly began choking. Are you using me as a guinea pig for a new recipe? You have done that before. Not a big deal. Logan shakes his head. Worse than that. My folks will be in town. We haven't seen each other in several years. It was unpleasant the last time. I was hoped that your presence would deter the visit. Why not take them to a restaurant? I am sure they would want to see where you work, and a pleasant public space tends to offset any visit. Logan took another sip of water. That would not be a good idea. Trust me. So, if you want to come, let me know when, and I'll do my best to be there on time. Logan relaxed as they discussed other recent topics in their lives. Nina observed a smile return to his eyes, and his legs stopped pumping nervously as Logan discussed the restaurant's new menu. Dinner was scheduled for 6 p.m., but Logan started gathering fresh items and cooking them ahead of time to ensure everything was ready. He took his time in the market on Friday morning, selecting the greatest rack of lamb, the freshest cabbage and potatoes, and a variety of other veggies and spices. Logan even baked Irish soda bread from scratch by 545. Everything was ready and toasty in the oven. His parents arrived at the scheduled time of 6 p.m. Logan's mother placed her strong arms around him in a comforting motherly embrace. Logan's father shook his hand and mumbled hello. The pleasantries were swiftly drained. Logan continued to stare from the door to his watch as the conversation faded. Finally, at 6:15, there was a knock on his door. Logan stood from his chair to respond, thankful for the brief break from the tight stillness. I apologize for being late. Nina gasped as the door opened. Work was difficult, and Chris called again. It was simply not a good day. Sorry to hear this, baby. Logan gave an awkward smile. I am glad you could make it, though. Nina didn't pay much attention when Logan called her baby, but when he leaned down and kissed her on the lips, she was taken aback. Nina was about to question him when he stepped aside, and she noticed the older couple sitting on the sofa watching them. Come in and meet my parents. Remember when I told you they were coming for dinner tonight? Logan wrapped his arm around Nina's waist, pulling her into the room. Hi. My name is Nina Murphy. She lives across the hallway. Nina, these are my parents, Nina and Connor O'Shea. Nice to meet you. I greeted Nina and shook hands with them. Logan's mother gave a very feminine handshake. She softly held Nina's hand with the tips of her fingers, and she bent her wrist in such a way that the handshake became awkward. In stark contrast, Connor O'Shea's hand grabbed Nina's tightly as he shook. So, are you the girlfriend? Connor regarded Nina suspiciously. Why don't we all sit down at the table and I'll serve the dinner? Logan was hesitantly suggested. Let me assist you, dear, Nina suggested, emphasizing the pet's name. Nina swung Logan around once they were alone in the kitchen. Girlfriend? She spat out, attempting to keep her voice low. Yes. I added, Look, Logan, I'm sorry, as I checked the doorway to ensure his parents were not nearby. I warned you that was a big favor. Please confirm that you will stay. I could only justify your presence by telling them you were my girlfriend. I need you here. I do not get along with my parents right now. Things are a little strained. Really? Nina was chided. Do you think it's because you lied? I'll explain everything later. Will you please stay and help me? Logan's eyes no longer contained the amusement and mischief that Nina was accustomed to seeing. Instead, their eyes were filled with anguish and sadness. Okay, she conceded. You should have prepared something delicious to eat, including dessert. Logan took Nina in his arms and spun her around the kitchen. Is everything okay, dear? Your father is becoming hungry and we have a long drive ahead of us. Sorry, Mother. Yeah, it's ready. Logan held Nina's feet steady as the two set about setting dinner on the table. Nina noticed Logan and his father exchange glares. Logan's mother's gaze shifted anxiously between her husband and son. There was very little conversation between the three of us. This is fantastic, Logan. Is there a new dish? Nina began a nice conversation to try to relieve the stress. She smiled at Logan and then looked to his parents. Logan always does it, she explained. I can't tell you how many times he's used me as a guinea pig for new dishes. Actually, it's an old one, but I've made some improvements and was considering including it as one of the specials next week. Where did you acquire the recipe, boy? It was Grandma Ryan's father. I recall her remarking, You always asked for lamb. I thought you would enjoy it. What's it called? Nina asked, pointing to a bowl filled with what appeared to be green mashed potatoes. It tastes nice. That's called a cannon. Okay, dear? That's right, Mama. It's mashed potatoes with cabbage and leek. I simply added a few additional spices, as Grandma Ryan demonstrated. I also used her recipe for Irish soda bread. Dad. So, Nina, what are you doing? Connor O'Shea stared directly at Nina. She watched Logan's gaze return to his plate. I work as an assistant at a small consulting firm, Logan bragged. Sitting erect. She's nearly done her master's degree. That is wonderful, Logan's mother cried out. That must have been a lot of work and school. Nina admitted that it gets aggravating. Logan, on the other hand, has been really supportive, and you back his decision to become a cook. I am a chef. Dad. Logan's voice sounded frustrated. Actually, sure I do, Nina said calmly. She leaned over and covered Logan's clenched fist with her own. It's just not right, Connor added. Okay, cooking is now primarily the responsibility of women, Father. These are modern times, cajoled his wife, caressing the elder man's hand as she spoke. You have not tasted my cooking. Nina then turned to Mr. O'Shea. Oh, I'm fine with the basics, like making spaghetti and frozen pizza. Logan, on the other hand, can transform even the most basic components into a feast. Take construction. The old man persisted. That is a man's job. Nonetheless, Mr. O'Shea, more women are entering the workforce, and not just as flaggers or office assistants. My cousin Christine requested a router and other power tools for her 16th birthday by the time she finished high school. She had added an extension to her parents' garage to house her workshop. She is currently the foreman of the company she works for. She works alongside the males and is highly respected by all of them. Oh, and she was the homecoming queen in her senior year of high school. It's only Dad. You're correct. It's simply not construction. Nonetheless, I am the restaurant's head chef, Dad. My degree, together with my employment at the restaurant, allows me to make more per year. After 5 years, then after 10. I work hard and make nice money. Connor Osha became agitated and dropped his fork to his plate. I'm not saying you don't, Dad, but I also do, and I do many of the same things you do in construction. Logan began raising the fingers of his free hand to accentuate his remarks. I manage and train the cooks who work under me. I create new meals by studying components and calculating their nutritional value. I calculate the production costs for each dish so that we can establish a pricing and earn a profit. And I negotiate with produce sellers to get the finest quality at the best price. I am not just standing in front of a grill, flipping burgers. I hope you could enjoy it, Logan. He unclenched his fist and wrapped his fingers around Nina's hand. Fiona did. He murmured nearly inaudibly, Connor? Osha threw his hand down on the table, forcing the drinks to splash and the cutlery to clank. Everyone jumped at the startling sound. It's getting late, Mom. We'll be driving for a while. The elder Osha rose from the table and extended his hand to his wife. Logan's shoulders fell as he rose up to deliver his parents' outerwear. After a polite thank you and farewell, Connor and Anna Osha departed. Logan leaned against the closed door. His gaze remained focused on the floor beneath him. Sorry for that. He apologized. I should not have put you through that. Would you like to talk about it? Nina stood by. Logan groaned and put a soothing hand on his arm. There's really nothing to talk about. I mean, you listen to him. Cooking is a woman's job, not something his son should do for a living. I hoped that seeing how successful I was would change his views. I suppose I was incorrect. Who is Fiona? Only a ghost from the past. Logan pushed off the door with his shoulders. Look, I just want to clean up and get to bed. Would you mind if we had an early night? Nina reached up and kissed Logan on his cheek. If you'd like to talk, you know where I am. Good night. She silently exited the flat, while Logan went to the kitchen. Logan was staring at his blank TV an hour later when he heard a knock on the door. He reluctantly stood up and looked outside to see who it was. As he opened the door, a twinkle of delight appeared in his eyes. You know, Nina started tapping her chin with her finger. I remembered that you owe me dessert, and given what we've been through, I believe we both deserve it. Mr. Nina walked into the apartment and headed toward the table. Logan walked into the kitchen and produced a serving plate with a bundt cake on it. Nina finished getting the place settings while Logan sliced and served the cake. This is great. What's it called? It is an Irish brand. Brat cake. Traditionally, small trinkets are baked inside the cake to bring something special to the recipient. This is fantastic, Logan. Really? Thank you, Nina. Look, I'm very sorry for what happened earlier. I should have warned you about what you were agreeing to. I just did not want you to say no. I needed you here. It didn't appear that I was much help. I mean, I insulted your father with that remark about my cousin Christine. No, it was not anything you said. He dislikes the concept that I cook for a living. I believe it stems from his old-fashioned belief that he does real work while I do not. I just can't get him to understand that he's incorrect. Perhaps it is your problem. What do you mean? Remember when I had writer's block and you took me on a walk? Logan nodded, recalling that day. I was frustrated and stopped writing because I was looking at the problem and answer from the wrong angle. Perhaps you are too. Look, you're trying too hard to persuade him he's mistaken. Let's face it. Who wants to be exposed and proven wrong? And I do not care how old you are. No parent wants their child to prove them wrong. Miss Murphy, how did you get to be so smart? Nina cleared her throat dramatically. It appears that a friend indicated that I am working on getting my master's. So, with a degree comes intellect. Logan lifted his eyebrow in feigned surprise. Possibly, more significantly, let's hope it comes with a higher wage. Nina timed her remark well. She laughed unapologetically as Logan struggled not to giggle with a mouthful of cake when he was finally able to swallow securely. He looked at his pal and laughed. Logan confessed, reaching for her hand and massaging it. I agree. Furthermore, that is what girlfriends are for. Nina got out of her chair and went over to stand alongside Logan. She leaned over and hugged him. He simply scooted his chair away from the table and drew Nina into his lap. They stayed for a few minutes, hugging on the chair, when Nina and Logan started yawning. They immediately cleaned up before saying goodnight. Each retreated to their own bedroom. Logan was sitting in his living room the next Thursday night, watching TV with little interest. He heard a beating on Nina's door and looked through his peephole to see who it was. Just as he expected, it was Chris. He had never liked Chris and just tolerated him because he was with Nina. Logan appreciated Nina's companionship. He remained at his door, listening to the events unfold. I told you, Chris. I am not in the mood tonight. I have a migraine. You always say that. Let me in, honey, and I'll help you take care of it. We don't need to go out. Logan shook his head and moved away from his door as Nina allowed Chris inside. He felt that wasn't the proper decision, but Nina was a grown woman who could make her own decisions merely to be safe. Logan turned down the noise on his television, but he remembered the fight Nina and Chris had that led to their breakup. A short while later, Logan heard 3 hard poundings on his door. After gazing through the crowd, he swung the door wide. Is there an issue, Chris? Logan's voice was full with hatred. What the hell were you doing with my girlfriend? What exactly are you talking about? You understand exactly what I am talking about. What's with your little nudie massages? Couldn't you wait until I was gone before screwing her? Logan noticed Nina in her doorway before responding. Her cheek was beginning to swell and her lower lip was sliced. Logan's gaze returned to Chris, who was ready to fight immediately. As Chris's fist smacked into his face, he said, Dennis 3F. Logan began defending himself and his home. Nina dashed down the hallway and knocked on Sarah's door 3 times. Dennis's wife responded when she saw Nina's face. She called her spouse into her flat. When Nina spotted Dennis, she didn't say much. Chris Logan's residence. Sarah, phone dispatch and tell them what's going on. Nina, I'd rather you stay here with Sarah so she can see your face, but I'm sure you'll follow, so keep behind me and out of the way. Dennis rushed from his apartment and approached Logan's. Logan had the foresight to leave his door open so Dennis could evaluate the situation as soon as he arrived. He discovered Logan, injured yet still standing. However, Chris was writhing and groaning on the floor. Logan looked across to the doorway, removed the towel and ice from his eye, and stated that he needed to defend himself. Officer, he struck me first. It is self-defense. His eyes showed a little Irish glint. Dennis murmured, no doubt. He knelt behind Chris and began reading him his rights, just as backup arrived at Logan's door. Paramedics arrived right behind them. Dennis informed the officers while Logan tried to console Nina in a corner of his living room away from Chris. One of the officers approached Logan and Nina. Ma'am, could you explain what happened? Nina's gaze shifted back to Chris, who was being cared to by paramedics. Oh, God. Nina covered her mouth as she dashed down the hallway to Logan's bathroom. She started to heave before slamming the door behind her. Are you all right, Nina? Logan knocked, listening to his pal get sick on the other end. He was ready to test the handle when he heard water. Then the door opened. Sorry. Nina apologized, bringing her robe closer to her chest and looked at the floor. The injuries on her face were more visible against her suddenly pale skin. Are you okay, ma'am? Logan was joined by a paramedic, followed by the cop who was questioning him. Yeah. Nina rested on Logan's shoulder. I had a migraine when I arrived home. Chris, is that your lover, madam? The officer started taking notes. No, he is my ex-boyfriend. He's been trying to get back together, but I'm not interested. The cop kept taking notes, hardly looking up occasionally. Chris came over tonight, but I told him to go since I had a migraine. I was stupid for letting him in, but I knew he would not leave otherwise. We argued, and he hit me. Nina pointed to her face. Well, a few times. The next thing I know, he was hammering on the Logan store. Do you reside on this floor? Yes. 3Cs across the hallway. Is this your residence, sir? Yes. Are you a new boyfriend? No. Look, we are just buddies. We've been buddies for years. Chris came over here and swung at me first, soon as I opened the door. I'm not sure what reason he had for his attack, but he initiated it, and I was simply protecting myself. That is good, sir. I'm simply trying to gather the facts. The cop spoke in a monotonous voice. Are you certain you're okay, ma'am? I checked on the paramedic and noticed Nina's color returning. I could look at your face. My face is fine. My jaw is moving normally. I have no clouded vision. I just need some ice, and the vomiting was induced by my migraine, which I was attempting to sleep off when Chris arrived tonight. When I can't sleep, my body throws up to relieve the pressure, so that was only due of my migraine, except for feeling embarrassed and degraded. I am fine, really. Dennis poked his head around the corner, calling everyone back to the living room. Logan wrapped a protecting arm around Nina as he helped her walk. The police swiftly completed their notes, and Dennis promised them that he would follow up. The police escorted Chris out, with paramedics close behind. Are you going to be fine, Nina? Dennis's expression was clouded with concern as he watched Nina slump on the sofa. She will be all right, Dennis. Thank you, Guy. I am going to keep an eye on her for a while. Logan extended his hand as he walked Dennis to the door. I wouldn't leave her alone tonight, Dennis warned, whispering so Nina couldn't hear. During the night, she may become aware of what has occurred and experience shock. I considered that. I meant to make a nuisance of myself. I'll have her call in sick tomorrow, too. She does not need to answer inquiries about her appearance right now. A good idea. Are you working tomorrow night? Sarah and I can invite her over for dinner if you are at work. Thank you, Dennis. I'll see how she's doing tomorrow. I might call in myself, however. They won't be very pleased. But time is catching up with me, and my manager knows I don't take days off on a whim. So if you need anything, man, you know where I am. Thank you again. Dennis. Logan moved across the hall and locked Nina's door as Dennis exited the flat. When he returned, he ensured that his door was properly shut before turning to face Nina. She was snuggled up on his sofa, tears silently falling from her eyes. Oh, geez. It's okay. Everything is going to be all right. Logan sat down and immediately dragged Nina onto his lap. He could have seriously hurt you. She sobbed. And that would have been my fault. No, that would have been his fault, and I'm fine. A little bloodied. But you haven't seen me since I created a new dish. Why don't you soak in a warm tub? I can fetch some clothing for you to change into. We'll have a small dinner to keep your tummy calm, and then it's off to bed. I'm not sure if I can sleep. You're staying here tonight, Nina. You are safe. I will not let anything happen to you now. Go start the tub while I hurry across to get you a change of clothes. Anything in particular? Or may I select what I want to see you in? Logan wiggled his brow, prompting Nina to smile softly. I already have a t-shirt and shorts on my bed. If I can trust you, can you fetch me clean panties? Oh, I get to go through your panty drawer. Upon second thinking, laughing, Logan stood close to the sofa. Please tell me which drawer. I'll be back soon. You can bind me. Nina proceeded to start the tub when she finished the instructions. She discovered more of the bath beads Logan had used for her previously and added them to the water. Logan began quietly pounding on the door as soon as she had nestled into the tub. Nina, I have your clothes. If you're in the tub, why don't you pull the shower curtain while I put your clothing on the counter? Okay, Nina called. I've closed the curtain. Damn, Logan teased, then opened the door. I hoped for a glimpse. Perhaps next time. You are such a pervert, and you are feeling better. Take as long as you like. I'm going to throw these clothes in the laundry and then prepare dinner. I'll let you know when it's ready. Oh, and I have brought an ice pack for your face. It's right there on the floor by the bathtub. Logan retrieved Nina's abandoned clothes and put them in the laundry before merging them with his own. He pulled Nina's garments up to his face and breathed deeply. Logan made a modest dinner of salad and hot sandwiches. During their meal, the pair relaxed in the living room. After completing, he washed the dishes and changed into PJ trousers and a t-shirt. It is getting late, Nina. Why aren't you taking my bed? Logan was offered something. Where will you sleep? I can still fit on the sofa. It's not that horrible. Why don't I just go back to my apartment? It's not that far away. I need you close by in case something occurs tonight. Nina, I know you. If you woke up scared, you would not come over here. You would not want to upset me. I might. Nina looked at Logan with a petulant pout on her face. Besides, I am not exhausted right now. That is okay. Why don't we relax in my bedroom? So, if you feel fatigued, you won't have far to go. Logan pushed Nina playfully into his bedroom. What would you like to do now? Nina asked, lounging on Logan's bed. I can't sleep and don't want to right now. I do not know. Do whatever you want. I understand. Want to play truth or dare? You know, you either agree to reveal the truth or accept a dare. Come on, it will be fun. Okay. Logan hesitantly agrees. You come first. Nina persisted eagerly. Truth or dare? Truth. Have any siblings? What? Sibs, as in sibling brother or sister? Have you got any? That is a curious question. Maybe. But after meeting your parents, I realized I didn't know much about your family, which is why I'm asking. I understand, I suppose. Okay, one sister. Fiona. Where is she? Nope. This is how I recall the game. There is no follow-up? Okay. Nina pouted. Truth or dare? Truth. Do you have any brothers and sisters? Nope. I am the only one. Truth or dare? Truth. Where is Fiona? You are aware that you lack patience. Okay. She used to experience these headaches when she was younger. This is how I learned to offer massages. We learned too late that she had a brain tumor. Wow. Sorry. It felt like a lifetime ago. Logan halted for a second inside. She taught me the writer's block strategy, but instead of taking me on a walk, Mom would have me cook. She sounds like a very intelligent young lady. She must have loved you a lot. Yeah, Fiona was smart and intelligent, just like you, and everyone adored her. Logan sighed once more before looking deeply into Nina's eyes. Okay. Truth or dare? Truth. Would you have gotten back with Chris? I'd like to believe I wouldn't, but I may have if he hadn't started that argument with you. Okay, fair enough. I apologize. I feel lonely at times. Okay, truth or dare? Truth. Who was your first kiss with? Marcia Neufeld, 3rd grade. We kissed under this large tree that served as the basis for tag during break. How cute. Logan rolled his eyes at Nina's taunt. Truth or dare? Dare. A brave soul. Logan grinned mischievously. I challenge you to moon me. What? You have heard me. Go stand there and drop. True. Have you never mooned someone before? No. I am a good girl. Laughing uncomfortably. Nina climbed out of bed, turned away from Logan, and hesitated. Then she gave a teasing glimpse over her shoulder. She pulled her shorts down just enough to show him before swiftly drawing them back up. Logan chuckled and shook his head, chuckling. Nina flopped back on the bed. Truth or dare? Truth. Okay. Nina smirked. Did you enjoy seeing that? Do you need to ask? Mr. Nina teased. You can't answer a truth with a question. All right. Yes. It was certainly amusing. Logan grinned. Truth or dare? Truth. When did you have your first significant relationship? Wow. Okay, Nina paused. I was at college, celebrating my 21st birthday. We have been together since freshman year. Oh, what happened? I expected us to get engaged soon after, but instead he ended our relationship and revealed that he had been seeing someone else for at least a year. Ouch. I apologize. Nina. It's sort of the tale of my life. She exhaled. All right, truth or dare? Truth. Have you ever experienced an unexpected crush? Logan reddened significantly and looked away before responding. Yeah, Mrs. Marshall, my 8th grade biology instructor. Most of the males had a crush on her. He chuckled, then caught Nina's gaze. Truth or dare? Dare. Okay, kiss me. Nina grinned, got up, and approached Logan. She leaned in, threw her arms around his neck, and gave him a brief, playful kiss on the lips before stepping back with a smile. Hey, do you call it a kiss? You never mentioned which type or for how long. Nina smiled triumphantly as she returned to her place in the opposite corner of the bed. Truth or dare? Truth. When did you lose your virginity? At 18. After the prom. I understand it's a cliché, but that's when it happened. Logan gave Nina a scathing glance as he observed her disbelief. What? I did not say anything. She gave Logan a genuine smile, which was instantly returned. Nina continued. Truth? Why don't you discuss more about your parents? It's just my mother. My father died while I was young, and I did not leave home on good terms. Mom remarried, and her spouse is a lech. I fled as quickly as possible. She is still married, thus I am still away. Sorry. It's not a huge deal. I mean, I've learned how to care for myself, correct? So it isn't all horrible. Okay. Truth or dare? Truth. Are you always so boring? Hey, you are the one that wanted to play this, right? Nina thought for a second before sitting up straighter and looking Logan warily. When is the last time you masturbated? Are we getting too personal here? Well, you wouldn't accept a dare. I'm not sure about you sometimes. Okay. Let us see. I think it was last week. Liar. You couldn't have lasted a whole week. I swear it was. This fox entered the restaurant and wished to compliment the cook on her food. She was dressed to the nines and stacked. I had a pleasant dream when I arrived home. Logan laughed and continued. Truth or dare? Dare. You have not learned. All right. Please flash me. Can I just do something else? Feeling uneasy, I quickly plead with Nina. Come on, it's no different from playing about. You do not have to keep it up. Just a simple lift and descent. That's why it's termed flashing. Please. Logan soon assumed a cheeky pose. His hands were clasped together beneath his chin as if he were praying, and his bottom lip was pulled out in an exaggerated pout. Nina turned to approach Logan, hesitant and without a grin. She momentarily pulled the hem of her shirt to her chin before immediately lowering it again. Despite her best efforts to ignore it, she felt a surge of humiliation. Why don't we stop now? Nina asked quietly, returning to her position on the bed. No. Logan shook his head, caught off guard. All right. Truth? No feeling of adventure. Nina attempted to lighten the mood with a dry chuckle. Not yet. Have you ever hit someone? You mean, before tonight? Logan gave a twisted smile. It has been a while. The last real fistfight I had was with one of my high school mates. I announced that I was going to be a chef. He began calling me names, so I decked him. Logan paused briefly to observe Nina's reaction. Truth or dare? Truth. Tired of dares. Are we? Logan arched an eyebrow at her, and he thought his expression had turned gloomy. Chris threw that. What? Did Chris give you the bruises on your breasts? Nina hesitantly brought her knees to her chest and gripped them tightly. Looking down, she said gently, "Yes," through a clamped jaw. Logan soon proceeded, daring. "I do not want to do this anymore." Nina sounded like a small girl about to cry. "Dare?" Logan repeated more insistently. When Nina did not respond, he spoke for her. "I challenge myself to kiss you the way you should be kissed." He got up on all fours and carefully moved across the bed until he was seated on his haunches beside Nina. Logan reached over to gently lift her face. He slowly brought his head closer and delicately pressed his lips to hers. Logan raised his head as he felt Nina's lips quiver beneath his. "Truth or dare?" he muttered, his face still inches away from her truth. "Would you like me to kiss you again?" "Yes." Logan sat up and carefully removed Nina's hands from her legs. She carefully lowered her knees as Logan leaned over her, placing his weight on his right hand and raising his left hand. He softly stroked Nina's wounded face with his thumb. Logan's thumb was there to brush away her tears, as if in slow motion. He leaned forward and pressed his lips on Nina's. When he broke the kiss this time, he applied just the right amount of pressure. He heard Nina's faint sigh. "Now the game is done. I guess we should try to get some sleep." Logan glanced at his clock and found it was after 2 a.m. "I'd like to hold you tonight, Nina. Just hold you. We'll have many tomorrows to decide where we want to go from here." Nina did not put up any resistance. Logan lowered the blankets and brought Nina to the head of the bed. When she was calm, he switched off the light and lay next to her. He slid his arm under Nina's head, drawing her closer to his sleep. "You're safe now, Nina." Logan waited until he thought Nina was asleep before dozing off. Logan was aware that he was dreaming, but he had no control over it. He knew the clear sky he was gazing at while lying on his back in the familiar field. He felt a warm body cling to his side, but was unable to move his head to see who it was. Instead, he was forced to look up at the sky. He heard a voice in his head. No, it was not correct. He sensed a voice in his head. It was a gentle caress of a familiar melody. That was his. Fiona. "You must let go of me, and let someone to fill your soul. I'll always be with you. But someone else needs you right now, and you need her. Your heart begs to share your love with her. You should let me go. You must assist everyone in their recovery. Only once they have healed will you be able to move on. You're powerful enough. You must help them. You're the only one. You're ready." Logan was prepared to protest, but was unable to. He sat motionless and observed light clouds develop in his sky. They formed his lovely face, and Fiona smiled down upon him, and then the clouds dissipated. He still had plenty of questions for her. He didn't want her to leave. He fervently desired that she return to his fantasy. His mind was still grappling with her loss. He felt a familiar fire rise within him. It started gently in his loins and eventually spread throughout his body. It was all inappropriate for his dream. He pushed his head to swivel and noticed Nina lying next him on the field. Logan jumped upright and her hand rubbed his torso. He awakened from his dream. Nina was beside him, still caressing his body. He was desperate to remember his dream and return to it. "Fiona!" "Stop!" Logan ripped Nina's hand away from his body without thinking. He almost instantly regretted his reaction. Nina's hurt and embarrassment were visible on her face. She raced from his bed in his apartment, slamming the door behind her. He punched his pillow in rage. He knew he had to go after her. Logan was just about to leave his bed. He heard Fiona's voice again. "She needs to sense your affection for her." He grabbed a box from the bathroom and his keys from the hook. Logan exited his flat and entered Nina's. He discovered her curled on the sofa, sobbing and shaking. She did not move when he entered or when he sat near her. "I brought them for us." He started dropping the entire box of Kleenex on the coffee table. "I have a hunch we'll need them." Logan waited for Nina's response, but she gave no rebuke. He proceeded. I owe you an apology and explanation. I know I was a shit, and I apologize, but I have a few questions for you before I explain. Will you respond to them? Nina nodded her head. Did your stepfather harm you or your previous boyfriends? Nina sat up to settle herself and blew her nose with a tissue before explaining. No. My mother's husband had never touched me. He was a lech, constantly leering at me, yet he claimed my physique revolted him. I wasn't obese, but I wasn't particularly athletic or toned. Have you ever told your mother how you felt? I tried once. She informed me that he was concerned that I wouldn't be able to find a suitable man to care for me. I couldn't make her comprehend how he looked at me. Graduating and going to college was the finest thing that could have happened. Nina brushed away the tears in her eyes. Was there somebody in college who hurt you? What about the man you told me about? You stayed with him for 3 years. Do you know how they talk about the freshman 10? Logan nodded. Well, I had the freshman 20. I worked any time I wasn't in school as an excuse to avoid my mother's house. In the process, I shed 20 pounds in the first year. That's when I met Gary. I was not even 100 pounds soaking wet. He told me I looked good. I believe you look much better today, Logan said. You are a beautiful woman. What happened? Looking back, Gary would never take me out for supper. It was usually movies, concerts, or parties. Anyway, he accompanied me to a party for my 21st birthday, and we both drank a little too much. When we returned to my room, I was telling him how wonderful the night had been. I was very naive. He turned to me and said I resembled a skeleton. Then he told me he was heading to Tiffany's room. At the very least, she was energetic and knew how to have fun. I'm so sorry, Nina. I simply pushed it aside and returned to my studies. I met Chris after graduation and began working full-time. Has he hurt you before? Nina tore into the clean tissue in her palms. Chris did not start out this way. I wouldn't date him at first, but he persisted. He showed me he could be nice and loving. So I gave in and went out with him. When he observed other men watching me while we were out, he grew very envious. And then he told me I had to decide between seeing him and having you as a friend. That's what the fight in the hallway was about when we broke up. I did not know. I understand you didn't. But when he pushed me to choose, it was simple. I knew you didn't like Chris, yet you never tried to get me to leave him. When he insisted on coming over tonight, I requested him to stroke my back. I told him that a friend had done it recently and it worked to relieve my migraine. So he realized you were that pal. He went nuts. This explains the bruising on your face. But not the remainder of your body. Nina, I know enough to realize those aren't new bruises on your breasts. Yeah. Nina focused on her hands, which rang in her lap. She took a big breath before continuing. I met Chris at a nightclub last weekend. Let's just say Chris now prefers it a little rough. The last time we slept together was a huge mistake on so many ways. Thank you. Logan reached over and gently hugged Nina. Now I owe you an explanation from earlier. Nina backed aside so she could look him in the eyes. No, you don't. Logan, I was out of line. I misinterpreted our little truth or dare game last night. I am merely a physical person. I like being touched and held. I have not had that since Chris and I split up. I miss it. And with all the stress I've been experiencing lately, then, Chris. And your kiss last night was quite delicate and really sensual. Logan shakes his head. No, you did not misinterpret. The kiss last night was genuine. It was not arranged to make you feel good. But something more happened, which I need to explain. Logan took a deep breath to gain courage. First and foremost, I am attracted to you. I believe I always have. But I didn't want to risk damaging our friendship. So I made you my replacement, little sister. I appreciate knowing you're just across the hall. I can rely on you. And I've missed that feeling since Fiona left. I always referred to Fiona as my little sister because she was considerably smaller than me. Like you, but she was also my twin, my complement. We seemed much closer than the other twins. We recognized that my flaws were her strengths, and vice versa. When she began to get headaches, I went out of my way to locate something to help relieve her suffering. The massages appeared to work for a time. When we learned about the brain tumor, I tried everything I could to help her. It must have been awful for you, too. When we learned she had a fatal illness, we all traveled to Ireland. She'd always wanted to go, so our parents took us as a high school graduation present, but we knew the true cause. She fell into a coma 2 weeks after her homecoming and did not wake up. Logan accepted Nina's tissue to wipe away the tears he was crying for Fiona. Fiona and I spent a lot of time together in Ireland. It was as if she knew she was about to die and wanted to share all of her innermost secrets and thoughts with me. We spent one afternoon simply lying in a meadow, gazing up at the sky and talking. It was lovely and I missed it with her. Nina went closer to Logan, wrapping her arms around him for comfort. Logan, I am very sorry. I never realized I had a dream this morning. I had a dream that I was back in that field in Ireland with someone beside me, but I couldn't see her. Fiona was speaking to me, telling me it was time to move on and let her go. She told me that I needed to let her go in order to make room for someone else in my soul. She departed before I could ask any questions. Then you entered my dream. Logan sucked in a breath and shook his head. No, that did not come out right, but I believe I understand, Nina consoled. You were hoping to see Fiona in your dream, but instead, you saw me. Do you still miss her? It is evident. I'm sure your parents miss her too. I know they do. Fiona had a knack of manipulating everyone. She always did that. I didn't mind either. I knew our parents loved us, but Fiona had a unique personality that encompassed everyone around her. So what does this mean for us? I believe Fiona was telling me it was all right to feel this way about you. I want to be with you, Nina. But I do not want to jeopardize our friendship. I'd like to be with you too. In many respects, you reminded me of my Fiona. I regard you as a compliment. You are the other piece that completes me. I hated hiding this from you, Chris, but I was scared you'd think less of me. Nina, I could never think less of you. You are incredibly strong. I have seen it in you. Logan moaned as he pulled Nina closer to his body. I want to be more than just friends with you, but I'd prefer to wait till your bruises have healed before we have wild, passionate sex together. Nina lifted an eyebrow with her inquiry. I was going to say, make love, but I think I prefer your suggestion. Logan and Nina had a much-needed laugh. I want Chris's wounds to heal so he won't be in bed with us. What a thought. Nina's tummy started growling right then. Why don't you phone work and let them know you're not coming in? I'll prepare us some breakfast, and then we can discuss some more. But I feel fine. I should be heading inside, Nina protested. You may feel well right now, but you will not. After a morning spent answering the same questions about your appearance. At the very least, waiting until Monday will allow you to practice your standard responses to the questions. Logan relaxed his grip on Nina, but he still held her. Okay, I'll call in with 2 conditions. Name one of them. You call in too if I have to stay at home. I am not going to be here alone. Absolutely. I had already planned to phone Mike later on. What is the second condition? You remind me of how I should expect to be kissed. Have you forgotten already? Maybe Chris clocked me harder than we think. This terrible, short memory loss. Logan bent down to kiss Nina on the lips, and they both grinned. She moaned into Logan's mouth as her hand reached up to hide in his thick hair and draw him closer to her. Logan reluctantly ended the kiss. Panting, he reminded Nina that she still needed to call. See? What have I told you about my short-term memory? Don't be shocked if I need a reminder again soon. Nina rose from the sofa, a smile on her face. She called her supervisor and described the issue, while Logan went into the kitchen to start breakfast. After breakfast, they changed out of their bedclothes and spent the morning talking. Logan's boss understood why he requested time off. Logan was upset about not having his best chef on a Friday night, but he vowed to be at work on Saturday, and his employer appeared calmer. Dennis and Sarah came by Nina's apartment in the early afternoon to see how she was doing. Logan answered the door, and they exchanged looks. Nina reluctantly let Sarah to assess her face. "Isn't it your day off?" "Sarah, you do not have to play nurse with me. I am fine." "Let me be the judge," Sarah demanded. "Furthermore, if I don't do this, Dennis would not leave me alone." Both women smiled and looked across at Dennis, who shrugged his shoulders. "Hey, guy, thanks for caring. Why don't you?" "I am with you, man." Logan expressed his disappointment. "Nina gave me just as much flack when I had her call into work. We don't get any respect," Nina teased. "And yet you are both still around." "What is the verdict?" Nurse Sarah Logan snubbed Nina and focused his gaze on Sarah. "She's fine. Nothing is broken or permanently damaged as far as I can see. How are you doing?" Sarah focused her attention on Logan's injuries. "Just a few cuts. Chris had only one opportunity at a sucker punch." "Have you got any plans for this afternoon?" "Do you need to work?" Logan asked Dennis. "Mike wasn't happy, but I called off work. He'll work me especially hard tomorrow, but that's okay. It will be worth knowing Nina is okay. I have a few things to finish for work in my classes, but they can wait till the weekend. Did you have anything in mind? I understand it is only lunchtime, but why don't you two come over for supper tonight? Are you invited, Dennis?" "I am not sure," Nina teased. "Logan is a very finicky eater." "Yeah, but nobody beats Sarah's lasagna. So what does an Irishman know about preparing good Italian lasagna?" Dennis drew his wife closer to his side. "Well, I don't know." "And you call yourself my friends?" Logan complained with faux anger. "Here I go, sacrificing my body and house to save a friend's virtue, and all I get in exchange is criticism." "Well, it isn't all you have." Nina spoke and then blushed. Dennis lifted an eyebrow and switched his gaze from one to the other. "Is there anything going on here that we should know about, Dennis?" "That is none of our concern." Sarah reprimanded her husband and slapped his chest. "Hey, what are you expecting? I am a cop. I'm curious." Hustling her spouse out the door, Sarah turned back and called, "Dinner will be served at 6. See you two then." Logan and Nina laughed as Sarah and Dennis departed. He puts his arms around her waist. Logan drew Nina toward him. "So, what do you want to do before dinner?" "Why don't we take a walk?" Nina suggested. "I don't want to spend the entire day locked up here. A good buddy once informed me that taking a stroll would help clear my head. But it's getting cold outside. So bundle up. Winter coats are designed for just that purpose. It's not like it is snowing or anything. Come on, the walk will benefit both of us." When they were ready, the two strolled behind their building and walked along the walkway. "Please tell me more about Fiona." Nina started slipping her arm over Logan's. "What would you like to know about her? What was her favorite ice cream?" Logan shook his head, laughing. "Leave it to you to pose such a foolish question." "Okay, I don't sure if she had a favorite, but Fiona enjoyed the strange-sounding ice creams. We would go to a neighborhood ice cream shop, and she would order chocolate marshmallow swirl, bubblegum, or birthday cake. But I believe the one she got the most was apple pie, and they are all ice creams." "Sure." Typically, the ice cream was made with a chocolate or vanilla base, and then combined in various ingredients. Except apple pie. That was a cinnamon ice cream base with apple chunks added. She did not enjoy the usual. Did she? Not at all. She preferred looking at something's potential rather than its popularity. I believe this is why she encouraged me to pursue a career in cooking. She knew it wouldn't be a popular move, especially with our father. But she understood I could turn it into more than a hobby. Don't believe my father's bravado. He cooks more than my mother. He simply does not do it for a living. Did he have a special moment with Fiona? What do you mean? Well, you two did the cooking and then massages. What did your father do? Only with her. Logan looked contemplative as he glanced at the path ahead of them. She and her dad would go to the movies. He didn't care which movie it was. He would even take her to chick flicks. She persuaded him to accompany her to the Superman flicks. And Rocky. Oh, and when she was into horror movies, her father took her to watch Halloween about a half-dozen times. What about her and your mother? They did a lot of girl activities together. Shopping, dressing up, and such. Fiona discovered something in every one of us to connect with. Did you and your father ever cook together? That sounds like something you both have in common. Logan paused for a second before wrapping his arm around Nina's shoulders, bringing her closer as they resumed walking. I don't think we ever did. I normally cooked alone, mainly for Fiona. Will you do me a favor if you can? Nina paused and fixed her gaze on Logan. She allowed her hands to wrap around his waist and clasp behind him. I need you to find a method to connect with your father. I want you to try cooking with him. I'm not certain I can. I'm not sure it's doable for Fiona. She knew it was possible. Nina stretched on her toes and kissed Logan's lips. He tightened his grip on her, adding additional heat to the kiss. I will try. He agreed. Now let's go back. It's getting cooler and I'd like to warm up before dinner. The pair walked together back to their building. It's finished, Logan announced, setting the phone receiver down in its cradle. What are the plans? Mom and Dad will be expecting us on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Mom knows I'm going to help Dad cook Thanksgiving dinner, but she's not going to say anything to him. What is this? Are you expecting us? Logan, this is something you should do. We never discussed where I was going. Besides, I'm not convinced my bruises will go away in 2 weeks. What are you going to tell your folks about my face? Logan placed his arms around Nina, pulling her close to his body. Relax, Nina. Yes. My parents will anticipate us. Remember, you are my girlfriend. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to leave you on a family vacation, now would it? Also, don't worry about your bruises. We will just tell them the truth. An ex-boyfriend attempted to reconcile with you, and when you refused, he swung at you before swinging for me. Remember? I, too, have bruises that need to be explained. I'm not sure if being there is a good idea. I offended your father when we first met. I am not doing this without you. Look, I need you there. You're giving me strength. And if my mother is correct, Dad will be expecting you. He feels you have spirit and determination which he admires. Mom says he's been asking about you every time she and I hang up the phone. Logan saw the time as they walked down the hall to Sarah's for a peaceful evening with friends, which ended the dispute. Logan arrived to the restaurant early for his Saturday duty. Logan snuck away before and after lunch to check on Nina, who was working steadily on her projects. Logan usually smiled as he hung up the phone after she teased him and made snarky jokes about his concern. Logan didn't get a chance to contact Nina when he walked down the corridor to his flat because dinner time was busy than expected. He considered what he should do. Logan anticipated Nina to be in bed by midnight, but he felt compelled to visit her one final time before falling asleep. He murmured gently to himself while he searched for his keys. I'll hang up my coat, take her key, and simply go over to check on her. If she falls asleep, she will never know I was there. And if she is awake, I will apologize for simply strolling in. But I'll see for myself if she's fine. She can't be too upset with me for that. Logan paused as soon as he opened his door. He didn't generally turn on the lights when he went for work, but he noticed one flickering in the corner of his eye. When he turned, he smiled before quietly closing and locking the door. The wavering light came from his television. He glanced and saw that it was on one of those cable home shopping networks, which used the light from the TV. He turned and saw Nina sleeping. She was laid out on his sofa, snuggling under a cover he knew from her place. Logan turned off the television and knelt next to the sofa, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness and lack of sound. Nina stirred. Logan smiled as Nina twitched her nose before rubbing it with her palm. She tilted her head slightly to the left and then back to the right. She slowly opened her eyes and grinned. "What time is it? It's past your bedtime." "I left later than expected because the restaurant was busy." Logan let a few fingertips to caress Nina's cheek. "How long have you been here?" "I just wanted to be present when you arrived home. I finished all of my work." Logan watched Nina's eyes close again. "Nina, I will pick you up and take you to my bed to sleep. I may return to my own bed." She yawned. "Sleep, Nina. I will take care of you." Gently. Logan hoisted Nina into his arms, leaving her throw on the sofa. He smiled when he entered his bedroom. When Nina arrived, she had turned down one corner of the bed. Logan put Nina on the uncovered sheet and covered her with his blankets. He quietly prepared for bed and joined her there. Nina turned to face Logan and nestled close to his body. Sunday morning came, cloudy and miserable. Snow was anticipated for the afternoon. Nina awoke, stretching out the last of her sleep. She smiled, opening her eyes. She noticed Logan smiling back at her. "Good morning, sunshine. What time did you arrive home?" "After midnight. I am pleased you were waiting. But you didn't need to." "I understand, but I did not want you to startle me when you woke me up. Coming over to check on me. Why would you suppose I'd try to enter your flat when you were sleeping? Just wanted to check in on you. You called me 5 times yesterday, Logan. That is excessive, even for the most dedicated spouse. Okay? I simply wanted to make sure you got some work done." "I did, after you had ceased calling." Nina giggled as she observed Logan's pout forming before he could turn away. She drew his head to hers and kissed him. "It feels lovely to wake up next to you." "I agree. So what should we do? Do we develop a schedule and plan out which days we will spend at the other's apartment? Or do we just go by ear?" "To be honest, I haven't given much thought to the future. I am still waiting for your bruises to heal." Logan leaned forward and kissed the tip of Nina's nose. "Personally, I believe we should wait until after the holidays." "Why are you saying that? You get quite busy at the restaurant with all of the additional holiday parties and special dinners you throw for me. I have to finish my classes and make sure I'm ready for finals right before Christmas." Logan said, "I won't be able to wait weeks to see you again. Or will you sleep with me? Scheduling time may seem overly clinical, but it may be necessary. Why don't we play it by ear till after Thanksgiving?" Nina made a compromise. "I have another paper and a test in my classes before then. I'm quite confident I'm ready for my finals, yet they still make me scared." "Okay, let me tell you what." Logan drew Nina close to his body. "If you completed everything you wanted to do this weekend, let's spend the day together. It could be completing routine duties in either place, going shopping, seeing a movie, or whatever. Then I'll be content with at least a phone call every few days till Thanksgiving. I won't like it, but I must accept it. We'll spend a couple days with my folks before deciding where to travel for the rest of Thanksgiving holiday. Can we start your strategy now that you've reminded me?" Nina didn't have a chance to complete her query. Logan pulled her onto her back, pressing his body against hers as he kissed her deeply. When he felt her recoil beneath him, he hurriedly backed away. "Sorry. I sort of lost myself there," he apologized. "I guess I now see why you want to wait till my injuries heal." Nina grinned happily. She nudged Logan's chest and saw him fall onto his back. She rose over him and kissed him again to relieve the pressure on her wounded face. Logan rubbed her back with affection and pleasure. The remainder of the day. What plans does the pair have for the next 2 weeks? They got together whenever they could and talked on the phone. If their schedules didn't allow them to see each other, they were able to spend a few dinners together, and it wasn't uncommon to discover one of them curled with the other when they woke up in the morning. Logan and Nina eventually finalized their Thanksgiving arrangements. Logan spoke with his mother several times, updating her on their plans for the holiday weekend, and Osha expressed disappointment that they would not be staying the entire weekend. But Logan vowed that there will be other times. Nina had the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off, so she was packed and ready when Logan arrived home from his parents. They were on the road by early afternoon and would arrive at Logan's parents' place around dinner time. Dinner at the Osha residence was strained, as evidenced by the senior Osha's scowl and the younger Nina and Anna's heavy sighs. Osha looked on, frustrated. Finally, Nina looked to Logan's mother and started a conversation without the two men. The women yelled about Logan as a child, while Nina answered questions about her own childhood. When asked about her mending injuries, Nina responded honestly. As she and Logan talked about the women, she disregarded the males and refused to let them add anything to their discourse. After dinner, Anna Osha had her husband help with the dishes, so Logan could bring Nina to her room. "So this was your room? It's a lot neater than I thought," Nina remarked. "I haven't lived here for nearly 7 years." Logan sighed. "Look, Nina, I apologize about dinner. Maybe coming here wasn't a good idea." "No." Nina closed the door and poked her finger into Logan's chest. She proceeded. "You won't run away again. You yourself stated that Fiona informed you that it was time. She did not say it was going to be simple, did she?" Logan grudgingly shook his head. "You must be the one to make the initial move." "I tried, Nina," he protested, "but he didn't even acknowledge me when he got home. You're starting to sound like a winner." "Perhaps I didn't know you as well as I thought." Nina paused and thought for a second before continuing, a devious smile spreading across her face. "I almost mentioned Fiona at dinner tonight. That would have set things moving. Don't you think that wouldn't have been the best?" "I understand. That is why I said nothing." "Yeah. Here is the deal. You have to make the first move. If you don't, I will shortly. And my next step will be to talk about Fiona and make you and your father listen. Do you understand? You would, won't you?" "Damn straight. Want to put me to the test?" Nina stood with her feet apart and arms folded across her chest as if challenging him. "Absolutely not." Logan approached Nina and placed his arms around her waist. "Okay, I will make an attempt to speak with him tomorrow. Mom remembers that I wanted to cook with Dad. You'd best be nearby." He leaned down to kiss her lips. "You are aware that this could end badly for me." "I know, and I vow that if it happens, I will take responsibility. I'll identify your body and ensure you have a decent burial." Nina's eyes began to gleam, and the corners of her mouth rose. Logan followed suit, and they were soon laughing together. The sun shone brightly on Thanksgiving morning, despite the snowfall the night before. Nina was rising in bed when she heard a faint knock on the door. "Yes." "Okay, good. You are awake. Do you mind if I come inside?" Anna Osha put her head through the doorway. Nina immediately welcomed her inside. A few moments later, Nina heard another knock on her door. "Who is it?" "Nina. It's Logan. Can I come inside?" "Not right now. Why don't you go downstairs for some breakfast? I will be down in a few minutes, okay? See you there." The women sat silent until they could no longer hear Logan's retreating footsteps. Anna Osha exited the room with a smile and returned to the kitchen. When Nina entered the kitchen 10 minutes later, she noticed Logan at the table, eating and reading a newspaper while his parents worked together to prepare for the big dinner. "Good. You are here?" Anna Osha clasped her hands together and untied the apron from her waist. "What do you think you're doing, Mom?" "We have work to do." "Put your apron back on," she yelled at her spouse. Anna moved to stand next to her son's girlfriend. "Nina and I have determined that this situation between you two has to end, so we are leaving." Logan's head sprang up in response to his mother's announcement. Nina and I are heading out for breakfast. After that, we'll go shopping, see a movie, or do anything we feel like. Nina said, "We won't be back until at least 12:30. But, Mother, you won't have much time to help me with dinner. You understand that I cannot do this alone and have dinner done by 1 Dao. What do you anticipate will be open, Nina?" Logan added, "It is Thanksgiving morning. We'll find something, even if it's only window shopping or sitting in a parking lot." Anna threw her apron in her son's lap. "Connor Logan will continue to cook here. He can help you. He's a chef after all. It's time you two cleared the air. I've already lost a child to terminal cancer. I refuse to lose the other to your terminal Irish stubbornness," Nina continued, looking at Logan. The two women walked arm in arm to gather their coats and other cold gear. When they left the house, they made sure to slam the door so the guys would know they had departed. "I guess I'll have to cut back this year, Connor," O'Shea muttered to himself, scratching the back of his head and inspecting the already prepared food. "I can help, Dad. I want to help. Please." Logan stood and observed his father. Logan spoke softly for Fiona as Connor turned and opened his mouth. "Please do not say that name around me. Why not Dad? Don't act as if you're the only one who's hurting Dad, but you aren't. We have all lost her." Logan halted and drew a breath. "You've lost a daughter, but I've lost my twin. Even so, you keep moving forward. Cooking, of all things." Logan's eyes softened when he gazed at his father. "Dad, when was the last time you watched a movie at a theater? What does that have to do with anything, Dad? In any case, they are prohibitively expensive. You have not gone since Fiona, have you? I don't see how that relates to anything. Do you think that because I am a chef, I do not miss Fiona every day? Dad, she was the one who urged me to look into schools. I understand." The elderly Osha huffed. "It has been so easy for you to move on after her passing. Do not tell me you miss her." "I do. Dad." Logan felt a tear go down his cheek. "I cooked to remember her father. She believed in me. I am cooking to keep her alive and with me. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to celebrate her. Can't you see it?" Connor O'Shea's mouth opened and closed with an audible pop. He stood motionless, looking at his son and through him. Then he looked down and pointed at the apron Logan was holding. "You do not have to wear that one. I have a couple of additional basic aprons in the cupboard there. I think I look lovely in these roses and ruffles, don't you think?" Logan maintained a straight face while looking at his father, but his eyes were filled with Irish mischief. After a second or two for the comment to sink in, both men started laughing. When they regained control, Logan put on his mother's apron and stood by his father for instructions. The older man examined the dinner preparations with his son. He even let the chef make ideas on some of the menu items and ingredients. The jobs were separated, and both guys went to work. The majority of the discourse revolved around employment, including building and food. Once that was done, Connor began questioning his kid about Nina. "She wasn't really your girlfriend when we came over for supper, right? I am sure she is one of those girls, and she's my pal. Cut the bullshit, son. You know, I'm not into that politically correct nonsense, okay?" "Dad." Logan chuckled. "No, we were not romantically involved at that point. We are now, however." He swiftly added, "There's no doubt about that." "What is that intended to mean?" "I'm just saying you stare at her with the same insane puppy dog eyes I had for your mother when I was your age." "You still do?" "Yes," Connor chuckled, blushing. "I suppose I do. She has a spunky personality, similar to Fiona and Mom to Dad. You should have heard her with me last night. You've already had a disagreement, right?" "Not really, I mean, we haven't been on the best of terms for a long. It was her idea that we come here for Thanksgiving. She persuaded me to talk to Mom about setting things up so I could cook with you this year, so my grandmother was in on this from the beginning. I'll have to speak with that woman. Don't blame Mom. Dad. There's more to it, but it's complex. What is the most difficult part of preparing Thanksgiving dinner? It has to do with Fiona." Okay, let's put the food in the oven and then sit down to talk. Father and son continued to work, with the food cooking and chilling right on time. They sat at the kitchen table, refueling with coffee. How come you never allowed me to cook with you, Dad? It's simply not right. Why not? Because every time I think of you cooking, I remember the times you did it for Fiona. Did you know about that? Logan glanced sheepishly at the table. Yeah, we had a long conversation one day, she told me. And I am proud of what you have accomplished for yourself. I can't bring myself to accept what has occurred. Connor Shea's voice trailed off. He choked back a sob and wiped the tears away with the back of his hand. Sometimes I think I hear her speaking to me. I can hear her voice in my head just as clearly as I can hear yours. Dad, we don't have to like it. She's gone. But we must accept it before we can move on. I know. And I pray every night that you never have to experience the pain of losing one of your own children. Dad, I had to bury my twin. That hurt too. Very much so. Why is this significant to your girlfriend? Why should we get along? I am not sure. Perhaps it is due to her strained relationship with her mother. Her father died while she was young, and her mother is now remarried. But Nina does not get along with him. She had not seen her mother in nearly 10 years. So, we are the replacement parents? Not really. I believe she recognizes that this is fixable. The issues she has with her mother are not. Are you that serious about her already? What made you say that? You informed her about Fiona. Son, you haven't mentioned Fiona since you left this place. You haven't said much about her since her death. Even when you lived here, I didn't want to injure both you and me. We were both so desperate to save the other's grief that we lost each other shortly after losing her. It does not have to be that way, Dad. Do you think Mom would be unhappy if we mentioned Fiona at dinner? I told Nina more about her. Your mother has been working on these photo books for a few years now. How about you? And how about Fiona? She was constantly trying to persuade me to look at them. Maybe now is the moment. We both stared at them. What are your thoughts? When Osha and Nina arrived home at 12:30 p.m., they heard no noise. They stared at each other hesitantly. They were about to remove their outerwear when a tremendous bellow arose. Damn! Both women forgot about their coats and dashed to the kitchen, stopping abruptly in the doorway. Yeah? Logan laughed, and then she began scolding him in front of the entire band. I didn't imagine somebody could become that deep red. I'm not sure what got to him more. The fact that she was half his size, or that she was pointing out his flaws loud enough for the entire school to hear what she lacked in stature. She made up for it in spirit, damn. The elder O'Shea laughed. I knew she was difficult, but she never told me that. It reminds me of when your mother, interrupted the stout Irish woman. What the hell's going on here? She demanded. Oh. Hello, Mama. Have you returned already? Connor Osha got from his chair and approached his wife, kissing her on the cheek. Isn't it time already? We had better check on the meal, son. Why don't you and Nina arrange the table? Mother Logan and I shall serve. He left his wife astonished. Connor approached his son, clapped him on the back, and hurried to work. Both women remained in the doorway, staring at each other with bewildered expressions. Logan approached Nina and quickly kissed her lips. Nina, hang up your coat and help Mom arrange the table. The dinner is almost ready. The women had recovered sufficiently to put up their winter clothing. Still astonished, they retrieved their belongings and laid the dining table in silence. Logan grabbed Nina by the waist and rushed her into the empty living room while his father and mother continued to lay dinner on the table before Nina could ask any questions. Logan placed his arms around her and kissed her hard on the lips when he yanked away roughly. They were both panting. What was that for? Nina asked, attempting to maintain her wobbly equilibrium. That is the beginning of my thank you. There will be more where it came from. Before Nina could raise any further inquiries, he looked into her eyes and lightly touched her cheek with his fingers. Connor O'Shea beckoned everyone to the table, standing behind his chair. Connor took his cue by extending his hands to each side. The other three grown-ups clasped hands and bent their heads. "Dear Lord, thank you for this particular feast, for which we are all grateful. You know it will fill both our hearts and our stomachs. Thank you for introducing us to these amazing friends. They have shown to be earthly angels." Connor halted and quickly squeezed Nina's hand. "And we are grateful for the time you allowed Fiona to spend with us here on Earth." "Connor," Osha paused again. "This time, I'm going to choke back a sob. We still miss her very terribly. Maybe with your support, we can recover and start celebrating her life." "Amen." Everyone echoed Connor's words, and a man freed their hands and sat down. Connor held up a platter and handed it to Nina. Guess he was the first to invite. She accepted it, put some food on her plate, and passed it along. The plates were passed around and everyone had their fill. When Anna Osha's husband mentioned his kid, tears welled up in her eyes, but they were quickly forgotten. For the first time in a long while, the walls shook with laughter. Once dinner had been completed and cleaned up, Connor requested his wife to bring out the photo books she had created of their children. Everyone sat around the book, which was spread out on the table. Nina watched calmly as the aching Osays began to heal. More anecdotes about Fiona were told, along with some embarrassing ones about Logan. As the afternoon went on, the house became silent again. Logan sat by Nina's side, his arm stretched over her shoulder and caressed her arm. Logan's parents were nestled together on the little love seat, chuckling like newlyweds. Logan began his father. "Why don't you take Nina out and show her around town? I know there's nothing open, but you may still show her where. Here are some of the areas we discussed today." "Are you both still leaving in the morning?" asked his mother. "Yes, Mom. We've been able to spend time together for the first time in roughly a month." "Not that it hasn't been enjoyable," Nina murmured, but Logan persisted, turning to her. "We have some talking to do when we get back." Logan stood and extended his hand to Nina. The two put on their coats and caps and left the house holding hands when they returned a few hours later. The home was dark and quiet. Logan looked upstairs, while Nina investigated the first floor. Logan smiled as they met up in the dining area. He began by saying that my reconciliation with Dad had helped him reconcile with Mom. If you get what I mean. He hugged Nina close and nuzzled her neck as she nodded in agreement. Logan decided to prepare a light dinner because they had consumed so much during their huge lunch. He was going to call up his parents when they walked into the kitchen in their robes. "Sorry, son," his father apologized. "We went up to rest and slept much longer than intended." "Not a problem, Father. I am just throwing something ready for dinner. It is ready if you wish to sit down." Their supper was relaxed, with Logan and Fiona continuing to tell anecdotes from their upbringing. Nina glanced across at Logan a few times and saw he never stopped smiling. She even overheard him whistling while doing the dishes. Later, Anna O'Shea prepared a big breakfast for her son and his girlfriend in the morning. She also packed some leftovers from the previous day's feast. Logan and Nina walked down the corridor toward their apartments after eating and said their goodbyes with tears in their eyes. Their neighbor almost ran them over. "Hello, guys. Happy Thanksgiving," I greeted Dennis. "You too, Guy. You went to work?" "Yes, brother. You know what they say. There is no rest for the wicked." Dennis smiled. "Speaking of wicked, Nina, I wanted to let you know that your ex-boyfriend Chris will be gone for a bit." "Such a shame," she responded sarcastically. "It appears," continued Dennis, "that the dude has been extremely busy with the girls. They had outstanding warrants for him in 3 different cities. Each referenced many domestic violence and assault accusations, with your charges and photos on top of the others. He'll be someone's unhappy wife inside prison for quite some time. Well, I've got to run. Have a pleasant day, everyone. One more ghost from the past, exorcised. Why don't you unpack and then join us for some leftovers and excellent company? Nina taunted. I thought it would be good leftovers and company. Everyone is a comic. What say you? Sure. Allow me around 30 minutes to check emails and voice messages. 2. Hey. Logan stopped Nina before she could enter her apartment. When she turned around, he bent over and gave her a long kiss. Can you create 15? Don't check anything, just change into something more comfy. I will see what I can do. Nina's raspy voice made her excitement clear. 10 minutes later, she was in Logan's apartment. Logan exited the kitchen just as she closed the door. I thought we could eat lunch and then talk for a while, he proposed. Nina had been standing with her back against the door when she heard Logan mention lunch. Nina lunged immediately at him after hearing that word. While she was in front of him, drawing his mouth down to hers, Nina used her tongue to obtain access to Logan's mouth as soon as she felt his lips meet hers. She put her arms tightly around Logan's shoulders, feeling his arms snake around her back. Logan quickly responded to Nina's kiss. His arms encircled her tightly, and their breathing became heavier as the time progressed. Logan gently lifted Nina onto her toes, increasing their bond. When they finally parted ways, Logan began to speak while they were both breathing heavily and unsteadily. Nina softly placed 2 fingers on his lips to silence him. She reached back and took his hand, leading him to the bedroom. She sat him on the edge of the bed and took a few hesitant steps back. She unzipped her sweatshirt, keeping her eyes fixed on him as she split the cloth. See? No more bruises there, she whispered quietly, and I can barely see anything on my face. She moved closer and let the sweatshirt slide off her shoulders. I believe we can do something better than chat, don't you? We'll have plenty of time for that. Logan stretched out, delicately running his fingers across her shoulder. He smiled as he noted her sudden intake of air. Nina leaned forward and rested her head on his chest. Her breath was gentle on his skin. Logan slowly drew back, guiding Nina's face to meet his gaze. He put a soft kiss on her forehead. Breaking the moment, he turned and pulled the bed covers down, facing her once more. He pulled her into his arms and carefully placed her in the middle of the bed. Logan joined her after removing his jacket, and the room felt silent and comfortingly near. Nina, I don't want to proceed too quickly, Logan whispered quietly as he pulled away. What do you think to be too fast? She chuckled. We've been home for 30 minutes and are already in bed. That is not what I meant. He exhaled. I do not want to overwhelm you. I sincerely care about you. I just think we should take things slowly. Logan. I can handle it. Nina responded with a loving smile. They spent the evening curled around one another's arms. Their relationship is growing stronger. Logan eventually managed to pull the sheets over them, and they both fell asleep within minutes. The next morning, they remained in bed having pleasant talk and laughs before getting into the shower. After cleaning up and dressing, they went to the kitchen for a late meal. Nina and Logan took a seat on the sofa in Logan's living room after they finished cleaning up. So, where are we going from here? Logan asked. I still don't think we should worry about it until after the holidays. How about the holidays? Will you not be busy at the restaurant? Nina, I won't be working all the time, Logan remarked, pausing to draw Nina into his lap. I am going to make time for you. I want you. He nuzzled her neck, causing her to chuckle quietly. Between education and employment. Nina groaned. I just don't know. Please go a little higher. Logan complied, letting his fingers slowly travel up her throat. Okay, let's begin with the basics. Logan sat up taller, his voice more serious. We are a pair. Yes, an exclusive pair. Definitely partners. Most absolutely. I think. For the time being, we can proceed as we did before to Thanksgiving. I enjoy waking up with you close to me, I agree, but it would also be lovely to fall asleep beside you two. If I knew you were joining me. There was no certainty that any of us would get enough sleep. Logan teased Nina, making her blush. Does the restaurant host a Christmas party? She inquired, changing the subject. Yes. I'll check with Mike on the date. When is the one for your office? Oh, next weekend. I guess I'll have to double check. Please let me know as soon as possible, and I will request time off. How about the holiday itself? Nina asked. I haven't spent Christmas with my parents in a while for obvious reasons. Depending on your schedule, we may be able to visit them this year. That would be excellent. Perhaps we could even make time to visit your mother. That's not a good idea. I told you, Logan. I am not going back while she is married to him. I understand, Nina. But we're united now. He wouldn't try anything with me around. We wouldn't need to remain overnight. Just a few hours. Logan gripped her tightly. What about having dinner at a restaurant? It's public. So if he tries anything, there will be witnesses. Somebody will notice. Let me think about it, Logan. But there is no certainty. That is all I ask. Simply think about it. Why is this significant to you? Why was it necessary that my father and I reconciled? You seemed to want to. You were hurting because you didn't have the relationship with your parents. I'm not too upset about not being able to communicate with my mother. She made her decision, and she chose him. Okay, then think of it as an opportunity to permanently close that chapter of your life. You can tell her you're pursuing your master's degree and living a fulfilling life. And you hope she has a happy life too. We will see. Before Logan could finish his argument, Nina distracted him with a passionate kiss. Nina was waiting for Logan when he arrived home from work on Tuesday night. Hello, Nina. What up? What do you mean? I thought you'd enjoy that. I was here. Oh, yes, I do. Logan drew Nina into his arms and laid a passionate kiss on her lips. However, it's late, and I anticipated to see you in my bed, rather than on my sofa. I call my mother tonight. Oh, hold that thinking. Logan shut the door and turned out the lights. He wrapped his arm around Nina as they walked silently into his bedroom. Logan placed Nina in bed and promptly joined her after taking off his clothing. He drew her into his arms and gently stroked her back. Okay. What happened? I told her I was earning my master's degree. Good. She also inquired about the pricing. She asked if I had a boyfriend. So what did you say? When I told her I did, she said she wouldn't be able to help if we got married. Oh, and she asked whether there were any rug rats in the photo yet. Really? She did not say it like that. Did she? Yes, Logan. She did. Despite everything, Nina halted to snuggle closer to him. I invited her to dinner at the restaurant. Because your celebration is a week from Friday, I chose the following Sunday afternoon so that the memory of the luncheon would not interfere with the great memories I'm expecting from your party. That is okay. What did your mom say? She reminded me that because I had invited them, I would be footing up the tab. When I agreed, so did she. I apologize, honey. I didn't realize. Don't worry, Logan. If nothing else, this will bring me closure. You were correct. I am feeling better about this decision. I mean, I don't believe there will be any surprises. And once we've finished, we're done. I'll be able to start fresh. Nina raised her head and gave Logan a passionate kiss on the lips. What is wrong? I just don't understand it. How can a mother treat her only child like that? And you're so relaxed. How do you accept this so calmly? Logan, I didn't grow up in a storybook family like you did. I used to wish things were different. Sure. Who wouldn't, given the circumstances? Maybe if things had changed after all this time, I'd feel bad for being gone so long. But since nothing has changed, I don't feel awful about neglecting that aspect of my life. I am not that girl anymore. Nina stretched over and pulled Logan in for another kiss. Logan was still holding back, even though she could tell he was losing control. Promise me something. Anything. Nina sat up, turned away from Logan, and removed her top. She went on to say that if we do stay together, we will strive to live our lives in the same way that you did growing up, not the one I owned. She knelt on the bed, gradually pulling her shorts and panties down to her knees. She leaned forward on all fours, turned back to face Logan, and stated, "Do you think you can persuade me to agree with you simply by displaying your assets?" He asked. "I can try. Can I?" She began ridiculing Logan when he couldn't take it anymore. As they snuggled back beneath the blankets, they made love, with tiny Nina slapping Logan's exposed chest. He kissed her lips thoroughly before turning out the light. Logan escorted Nina to her company Christmas party on Friday evening. Nina's friends and co-workers were overjoyed to meet the man who had brightened her spirits for the holidays. All eyes were on the couple as they danced the night away, and an office wager began on how long the couple would wait before marrying. Mike and the others had the same reaction when they finally saw Nina at the restaurant's Christmas party a week later. "So that's Nina. How did you get so lucky?" he teased Mike as he cornered Logan in the bar. "I'm not sure, man, but I am not asking questions. She's your neighbor, correct?" "Yeah, that is how we met. Get it?" We both moved into our flats over the same weekend. It didn't make sense not to introduce ourselves. We ran into each other frequently enough. Why did it take you so long to ask her out? It's not like you had to go looking. I know things have just gotten complicated. We became really good friends. I didn't want to risk it. So, what has changed now? I honestly couldn't tell you. All I know is that her ex-boyfriend and my twin sister ultimately set the wheels in motion. I'm not going to pretend I comprehend what you just said. However, you need get your plans in motion before O'Malley goes and steals your girl. Mike chuckled as he watched Logan push through the crowds to rejoin his date. Before the restaurant's playboy made a move. "Hey, Tommy, you best keep your hands off my daughter, or you'll be pulling the most unpopular station in the kitchen for the next 3 years," Logan said. Tommy turned on his heels, almost knocking Logan's drinks out of his hands. "Sorry, boss. No, it is not like that. I was merely keeping her company so no one else would pursue her," he stammered. Logan began laughing at the young man's pain. "Do you remember? She's mine." "Yes, boss. Not an issue." Tommy moved through the crowd rapidly. Logan looked over his shoulder at Mike and grinned, winking at the older man at the bar. Nina attempted to occupy her mind on Saturday by studying for her finals. Logan did not have to work, but he needed to run errands, so Nina stayed at home. When her thoughts turned to the luncheon with her mother set for the following day, Nina would wander through her apartment, touching anything that reminded her of Logan. Nina allowed the warmth of the object's memories to wash through her. She was then able to return to her desk and concentrate for a few minutes longer. Sunday finally arrived. "Nina, it's okay. It's only your mama." Logan tried to calm his nerves. "Only my mother and her. Less of a husband." Logan grumbled, "I am not sure I can do this. Do I look okay? You look gorgeous, baby." Logan leaned down and kissed Nina's lips before holding open the restaurant door for her. "You tried on 3 different costumes, and each looked amazing on you. Now you can relax. Everything will be okay." "Easy for you to say," Nina whispered under her breath, forcing a phony grin on her face. "There they are," she announced to Logan with clenched teeth. Logan escorted Nina to the table and welcomed her mother and husband. Nina's mother greeted her daughter with an air kiss on the cheek, as hell moved to embrace her. Nina hurried hastily out of his reach. Logan pulled Nina's chair out and sat her next to her mother before excused himself. "If you will allow me," he explained. "I've already ordered the meal for us. Nina told me what you both like to eat, so I informed the kitchen workers sooner. I just have to make sure everything is ready." Nina saw Logan walk away from the table. Her hands were ringing on her lap. "So, what's all this about? Do you think he is superior than us?" Nina scowled at the man seated across from her. "Logan is the chief chef of this restaurant. Hell, he's doing his best to make this a pleasurable experience for all of us. He better not try to slip any of those fancy foods past me. He is not that type." "Hell. How long have you known this man, Nina?" her mother inquired. "Since I've moved into my flat." "Mom?" He lives across the hallway. He seems like a pleasant young man. He is. While I was working on my master's degree, he was really encouraging. Is he boinking you yet? Wow, you truly know how to say the correct thing. Nina didn't disguise her sarcasm in her tone before he could say anything else. Logan returned to the table. Nina felt glad when the dinner arrived shortly after that. I'll be quiet while he eats his steak, so Nina may catch up with her mother. Logan winced several times while listening to the courteous but impersonal talk. After the plates were cleared, coffee and dessert were brought to the table. So, Larry, what are your intentions for our daughter? Nina reminded me it was Logan. And I am not your daughter. Whatever. I still have the right to know what his objectives are. Well, I am pleased you asked. Logan slid his chair back from the table and turned to face Nina. Nina, you know I'm better at cooking than writing, but I was wondering if you'd let me cook for you for the rest of our life. Will you marry me? Nina's hands covered her mouth. His tears began to well up in her eyes. The diner unexpectedly went quiet. Logan dipped into his pocket and grabbed an antique-looking box. When he opened it, he knelt before Nina and gave her with a little diamond set in an elegantly crafted band. Nina took a big breath and removed her hands from her mouth. She opened it and tried to speak, but all she could do was not move her head. Logan put the ring on Nina's finger and brought her face into his. When his lips met hers, the restaurant erupted into cheers. Nina carefully moved away from Logan's face. It's unfortunate that your folks couldn't be here. Logan sat back in his chair and replied, They were going to try. But Mom wasn't feeling well, so they stayed at home. We have the next best thing, though. Logan extended his hand, and Mike approached with a little video camera. Mike captured it for us to show Mom and Dad at Christmas. Nina grinned heartily and gazed down at her hand. She moved her fingers as if to see whether the ring would come off. She extended her hand up and then over for her mother to see. You'll be invited to the wedding, of course, Logan announced to the astonished elderly couple at the table. But just in case you can't make it, I thought you should at least watch Nina get engaged. Where did you obtain this ring, Logan? It's beautiful. It's perfect. Mom and Dad sent it. Consider this Fiona's present. Nina couldn't stop smiling as she gazed down at the ring again. She also looked at her watch. Look at the time. It's getting late, Mother. I remember you saying you didn't want to be on the road after dark. So you guys better get going, and I need to get back to studying. We'll let you know when the wedding will be. Do not worry. I know you won't be able to pay for anything. The foursome stood up from the table, and Nina hugged her mother. Logan shook her hand before kissing his future mother-in-law's cheek as they left the table. Logan wrapped his arm around his fiancée and stepped between her and damnation. When the foursome exited the restaurant, nothing was spoken as one couple headed left and the other turned right. Nina struggled to concentrate on her schoolwork, but Logan did his best to keep her focused. Once her final exam was completed, the couple traveled to the Osha house for a stress-free holiday. When his son and fiancée arrived, Connor Osha greeted them with a hearty hug. Where's Mom? Dad? She's resting right now, son. She has the flu or something. It just hangs on. But she says she feels better and wants to see you when she wakes up. No. She arrived downstairs on time for dinner. She welcomed Nina into her family and embraced her in a warm hug before scrutinizing the ring on her finger. I am not surprised it fits you, sweetheart. It was formerly owned by my mother and her mother. It was supposed to go to Fiona, but I know she would prefer you to have it. You've pulled my family back together just as Fiona would have. Anna made no effort to conceal her tears of delight. Logan took out his video camera after supper and set it up to show his parents the proposal. Mike had also recorded film during the meal. Connor had nothing positive to say about Hal and stopped short of attacking Nina's mother when his wife touched his palm. The senior Shays watched as their only son presented the ring to his betrothed. They both started crying again. When the young couple said their goodbyes, the holiday visit came to an end abruptly. Everyone's eyes were wet. Logan and Nina drove home silently. Nina stayed in Logan's place that night. He made love to her with all his passion. Throughout the night, the pair rapidly went into a deep sleep. Logan awoke with a start. He could feel Fiona's presence in his head again. He overheard her voice. "She is at peace." Logan sat up in bed, looking over to his nightstand. He gazed at his phone, and it rang within seconds. He quickly checked the caller ID. He answered it. "Hello, Dad." Nina awoke as the phone rang and observed her lover's expressions via the light of the handset. "I understand, Dad. I'll be there after breakfast if that's soon enough. If not, I will go now." Logan sighed. Is alone. Tears poured down his cheeks. "Don't worry about it, Dad. I have some time coming. Mike will understand." Logan reached for Nina's hand and linked his fingers around hers. "I'll offer her the option, but I'm confident she'll choose to come to Dad. Do not worry about it. Everything will be okay. I will be there soon. I love you." Logan put the phone back in its cradle and peered off into the darkness for a few moments. He slouched in the bed and took Nina into his arms, caressing her side. His tears fell steadily. That was Dad. Nina. He awoke to discover that his mother had died in her sleep. Nina held to Logan, and they both grieved freely. 2 hours later, they had showered and dressed and were on their way back to Logan's childhood home. Despite the fact that the funeral was approaching, Logan assisted his father in making arrangements. Following the holidays, the chapel was packed with family and friends wishing to say goodbye to NASA. The graveside service was held privately for family members only. Connor O'Shea buried his wife close to his daughter. Logan remained by his side, enabling the elderly man to cling to his son in despair. Logan and Nina reluctantly returned to their home, leaving Connor O'Shea alone for the first time in more than 30 years. With Logan's persistent support, Nina completed her master's thesis and had it approved by the committee. Connor O'Shea, together with her mother and Hel, were invited to her graduation. Connor stood proudly behind his son as Nina obtained her degree. The 2 seats next to Logan remained vacant. With the beginning of summer, Logan and Nina began making wedding plans. Both settled on a simple wedding, nothing too extravagant. They decided on a wedding at a local chapel and a reception at the restaurant. Nina sent an invitation to her mother, but she said she couldn't come, so Dennis and his wife Sarah served as best man and matron of honor. Nina asked her future father-in-law to accompany her down the aisle, tears in his eyes. He accepted. Nina's wedding preparations fell into shape on that Saturday in mid-October. The sun shined brightly, and the temperature rose to an unseasonably warm but comfortable level. There were no dry eyes during the ceremony, and the reception was a magnificent celebration of life and love. "Come in," Nina said in answer to the soft knocking on her door, ready for dinner without waiting for a reply. Logan took the food into the room and began placing it on the tables. Nina grumbled, "You're going to keep me fat." "You're not fat. You are healthy. Even the doctor stated so." Logan sat on the bed, softly drawing his wife into his arms for a loving kiss. Logan paused to put his forehead on Nina's after they broke their kiss. He chuckled as he heard a faint whimper. "It sounds like it's also dinner time for someone else. I thought newborns were supposed to have their own schedule, not ours," Nina remarked, smiling despite herself. "You sit and eat. I will change the baby." Logan passed the table to Nina before proceeding to the little bundle in the bassinet. "Your father called today?" Nina began between mouthfuls. "Oh, that's good. How did you get it past the guards? Is this a new dish?" "Yes. I'm thinking of featuring it as the special next week." Logan cradled his baby against his chest as he carried her to her mother. "What did my father want?" In fact, the baby's name irritated him slightly, especially when I described how we came up with it. Nina set her fork on her dish and lifted her blouse for her fussy toddler. The baby latches onto her mother's breast and begins to feed comfortably. What is wrong with her name? You said you enjoyed it. I do, but you must acknowledge. Fiona Masters. Osha is an interesting name. I think it's lovely. Exactly like my kid and her mother. Thank you. Logan, I love you. I adore you too. How did you explain the baby's name to father? Logan picked at the food on his plate. I informed him what had happened. We couldn't decide on a name for either a boy or a girl, so we each chose a name and sealed it inside an envelope. When the infant was born, we opened the appropriate packet, and that is the name I selected, Fiona. And you chose Masters, which I noticed you included in the boy's mail. If you hadn't been so focused on your master's degree, we would have remained friends and neighbors. That's all I intended. Logan leaned over to apologize to his wife, kissing her on the cheek. I'll phone Dad tonight and talk to him. There's no necessity. He is coming up this weekend to meet his granddaughter. You'll have the entire weekend to straighten things out. Nina chuckled as she overheard her hubby groan. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened.